everyone, and good evening. It is time for another episode of almost said Top 5 Party Chat, episode 34. What's up, Carl? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing just peaches and creams.
Excellent. Good to hear. So, Ryan said he's on his way. He's running late. Hopefully he'll be here because I missed that guy. But we got an awesome guest who is making a return to the channel. Been a while. I was just looking at the schedule. Last time he was here was on Open Mic in October of 2023. So it's been a while. But it's good to have friend from, I think he's in your time zone. But Extra Zeros get back for the first
I'm an
time
East
on Party
Coaster.
Chat. Oh, East Coast. I thought you were
Yes,
saying
he's from the
as well.
future.
Yeah, right. I'm from the future, and then I hang out with Australians online who are from the day ahead, which is always weird.
So glad you could make it. We weren't able to do this. I wanted to have you on like forever ago, but your meme streams on Saturdays were like right as a Party Chat was ending, and then we moved it to Tuesdays.
I started independent streams on Tuesdays.
You started your own stream on Tuesday, so I appreciate you making some accommodations to be here tonight.
Oh yeah, no, it's a pleasure, and also too with all the I guess the chaos. So I do. For those that don't know, I have a Transformers centric podcast. It's on my channel, youtube.com/extra zero. It's called 0 Hour, and I go live every Tuesday at 9, so same time. If you're into collecting, you can check me out on the replays. But I go in depth with everything that's happening in the world of Transformers, and right now there's a crowdfunding effort going on, and I don't really want to get into the how, what's, and whys of why billion-dollar companies are doing crowdfunding, but there's a lot to unpack with it, and this most recent one ended up succeeding like almost overnight. So I'm also kind of letting the dust settle on that and some of the other things that Hasbro is saying settle, and it actually works for me to delay the show, so I'll be able to have even more thoughts on that. But I'm also on a gaming podcast. I make my appearances on Sundays in the States. It's the Australian Monday. Gronking on Dogs, great people. If you happen to know Lethal Lightning, Mazza, Cream NATO, John Connors, I'm on there with them on Sundays. And right now it's at 4 until daylight savings times hits here, and then daylight savings times hits there, and then the show starts at 6 p.m. because time zones are all screwy with the folks from the land down under. But I definitely enjoy the gaming conversation, so I'm glad to be here. And when you showed me the topics for tonight, I was very excited because I've got a lot to say about all of them.
Excellent. So, I was going to say with the whole time zone thing, I'm usually on Bloodbath with Static 2020 on Mondays, and he's in Arizona, and they don't do daylight savings. So it makes it even more complicated. So, but glad to have you back. First time on Party Chat.
Yes, sir.
So with that, we'll go ahead and, I see that Angry Canadian is in chat chastising us before we went live. What's up, Canadian? Good to see you. We did start late, but we were just having a good time chatting backstage. It's like, all right, we got to get going. So, we'll go ahead and go around the horn as we normally do at the beginning and ask everyone what you've been playing lately. So, Extra Jew, have you been playing anything lately?
Been playing a bunch of stuff. I beat Black Myth Wukong.
Okay.
And I'm in the minority of people that didn't like it.
I was going to say, I think I remember you saying you're not a fan of it.
Yeah, I mostly beat it because I want to have kind of a debate or honest conversation with my boy Lethal Lightning, because I have nothing against Souls games or Souls likes. It's a very challenging game, but I think that a lot of it, at least in my opinion, and again, what they say about opinions, but in my opinion, I think the game was really veiled by the graphics, and I have a lot of technical, so I've played it both on PC and PS5. I was gifted a copy on PS5, and I bought it myself on PC, and I saw technical issues on both. And I have a very beefy machine. I've got a 14th gen Intel, a 4080 overclocked. I have plenty of RAM and cooling, and it didn't run the best on either setup. And then also too, I didn't really enjoy certain aspects of the combat, and I thought a lot of the design aspects of the game were dated. Things like invisible barriers and walls.
Oh, I've heard about that.
Yeah, And it's kind of funny going back, and so I'm also playing Ninja Gaiden Black 2.
Yes.
I'm really enjoying it. Now, some people are like, well, how could you complain about, because I also complained about the camera in Wukong. Like Wukong's camera, like like my big problem with the game is the bosses, because the game is essentially like there are enemies to fight, but they're padding. It is at its heart a boss rush Souls-like.
Okay.
So people will argue with me on it, but that was my experience playing the game, that it was a boss rush Souls-like. And I kept finding situations where you had giant bosses doing acrobatics and somersaults over you, and the camera is going inside the bosses.
Okay.
Parry mechanic. It's purely based on perfect dodges. And all of the strategy I found was finding the 1 or 2 ways, sometimes 3 ways, to rush in and exploit the boss. Basically, it's a game of let's figure out how to cheese the boss rather than find an actual strategy to defeat him.
Gotcha.
I'm sure people argue with me on that, but I'm playing Ninja Gaiden Black 2, Breath of Fresh Air. I'm also playing Donkey Kong Country Returns because I'm an idiot and I paid full price for it, but I love it. And I wanted a fun monkey game to wash the taste of bad monkey game.
Cool. Yeah, my platform of choice is Xbox, and that was literally Wukong is literally like my most anticipated game for like 3 years, and then it comes out and like, oh yeah, it's not coming to Xbox, and we still have no word of when or if it's going to. But I'm still very much looking forward to playing it when it does. If it never ends up coming to Xbox, I'll play it on PC. But I'm still looking forward to playing it.
Like I said, opinions. You may love it, but I will just say it wasn't for me, and I have my issues. But at least you have Ninja Gaiden Sigma or Ninja Gaiden Gaiden Black 2.
Yeah, because I've been talking, because Ninja Gaiden is basically making resurgence, which I am all about, because it's one of my. I just recently, I'll shout out Carl here because he introduced me to this Fuse gaming community. So I'll drop the link in chat here for anyone who wants to check it out. It's really cool, and it's got a spot for ranking your top 10 games of all time. And I think Ninja Gaiden Black was like my number 3. So I freaking love Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden 2 is great as well. But yeah, it's confusing because there's so many different versions of each game.
Yeah.
And I've often not rant, but I guess criticize maybe that the Souls likes have basically co-opted the hack and slash genre.
Yes.
Haven't gotten like any hack and slashes in a while.
Yeah.
And
we need more from Platinum too.
Yes. So having the resurgence of one of my favorite franchises this year, where we've gotten 3 announced, and one already was Shadow Drop, Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, we got Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, and Ninja Gaiden 4. Yeah. I am so amped for those games. But
also, for anybody complaining about censorship, there was a game that came out before all this culture war stuff, and it was called Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2. And it was on PlayStation 3. And Sony censored that game.
Oh, because I have the Master Ninja Collection, which includes Sigma 1 and 2. I haven't played them yet, but I've heard that they cut out a lot of stuff in the Sigma versions. Is it just Sigma 2, or is it in both of them?
From what I remember, it was Sigma 2, because one of the big elements of Ninja Gaiden 2 is dismemberment. And
it's a part of the gameplay.
Yeah. Heavily part it down. It was like a rarity for you to do it. And everybody back then was like, why would you do that? And
because I've heard that the originals are better than the Sigma versions. And I've been watching my buddy Dude 1286. He just started Sigma 1 for the first time. I'm like, I'm not seeing that much of a difference between Ninja Gaiden Black and Sigma, but it'll probably be much more apparent once he gets to Sigma 2.
Yeah.
So, well, cool. What about you, Carl? How many games have you beaten in the last 24 hours, I should ask?
0.
Oh, you're slowing down a little bit, huh?
Well, it's I've been playing the God of War series, and I beat all 3 of them in a week because they're not long games at all. Very good, very interesting. I thought David Jaffe was more involved with the later God of War projects, but he really wasn't, as what I originally thought.
Okay.
It was mostly Cory Barlog was kind of like the guy who was head of the games after 1. But Cory Barlog has been there since day 1 too, because he was I believe the lead animation design. I found out.
Okay.
For the first game, at least.
Yeah, I've heard that name. If you asked me who that was, I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I've heard that name plenty of times.
Yeah, I think he's now the studio head of Sony Santa Monica. and I think it was David Jaffe, and then Jaffe got replaced by somebody else because I just remember seeing that in God of War 3 that it was somebody else. And then I think Cory Barlog took over. And Stig, I think, is the other guy who just did Ragnarok. He was the lead on Ragnarok. Which, wasn't a big fan of the Ragnaroks, as I would like to say. But, overall, generally speaking, I did enjoy going through the first 3 games again. And I realized that I hate God of War 1 a lot more than I thought I did.
That Hades part, that was like... that always killed momentum for me.
Oh, yes. One of my biggest gripes with God of War 1 was difficulty gimmicks, unnecessary. You gotta push a box around and everything else like that. And Kratos has as much grace and nimbleness trying to do that platforming as a lead blurk. So I was getting mad
when they would spin the camera around.
Oh, I hated that so much.
Yeah.
I died one time because I jumped over a ledge and the camera flipped over and Kratos was like midair Looney Tunes, turns around and falls to his death. And I was just like, oh, come on.
I got to ask, having replayed them all, which between 2 and 3, which do you think's the better?
That's kind of a tie right now because I think 2, 3, and 4 are all really good. I would say that probably just from a satisfaction angle, I would say 3 is still the best, but that's also because there's just you get everything you want. You get that over the top power fantasy, you get the revenge on all the gods, and they did a really good job with combining, because this is very crucial. Your weapon upgrades and your magic upgrades are linked together, so they count as one upgrade, and that I thought was really good because I forgot that they did that. Play the PS4 remaster though, because it looks amazing, especially in 4K with auto HDR.
Except there's one thing about that remaster I dislike is that it becomes incredibly apparent what is FMVs.
Yeah.
Because it's because it feels like when you're in the game, the resolution's higher, and then the Poseidon part, it's you can definitely see when they switch the FMV, and the resolution drops just a taste. There's a little bit of macro blocking.
Yeah, I can see that point. It's
not enough to ruin the experience. It's just
I mean, it is a PS3 game though. You gotta remember, God of War 3 did come out on the PS3, and God of War 2 was one of the last first-party PS2 games. A lot of people don't remember that God of War 2 was PS2 only, and it wasn't available on PS3 natively until a remaster. So that was really did enjoy those series. Going through it again, trying to make way for the other 3, the spin-offs and the prequel. So
Ascension is a rough one, man. If you don't like the camera stuff in God of War 1, there's this part in Ascension where the game isn't hard, but it pulls the camera back so far to try and be cinematic, and you're in this cube that's rotating with platforms that are falling out. Oh, and harpies everywhere.
I like the story of Ascension. It's been a while though since I've played it, so it's a whole new experience. Besides that, I've been playing Pokemon Emerald to try to get more of that hat trick challenge that we keep doing the O4 thing. Shockingly, I feel like Emerald is a lot harder than Crystal and Yellow, because I was able to kind of breeze through Crystal and Yellow, and then I'm playing Emerald, and I'm like, I just played Ruby last year. This doesn't feel like it was that hard. And then Emerald, I got was getting my stuff pushed in by the 3rd gym leader, and I was like, why is this harder than I remember? But I beat that guy last night, so we're on the grind now to gym 4. So maybe we'll be done probably by this week with that one. Also went back to Yakuza 5 because I want to get that because like a pirate, Yakuza Pirates in Hawaii is coming out this week. So I actually saw that my physical copy will not be here until I'm on vacation, so I bought it for PC. So I'll be playing that on PC and maybe taking that with me to when I go on vacation because it is Steam Deck verified. So probably we'll see how that controls on here. And I also started playing Avowed. I got my Steelbook late, so hopefully I get my discount, my money back, because I was mad at Best Buy because I paid for the early access version and I didn't get early access. So I did just go ahead and pay the $22 because of Game Pass and stuff to just play it right now earlier. So far, what I could say is I'm enjoying it.
Okay.
I like the wand combat. I like the spells and everything like that. Reading some reviews online, I think a lot of people really. One of my biggest problem I have is like people kind of just like make their own assertions in their heads. I think about a lot of these games sometimes to ruin their own hype when they get the product. But I've been playing it. My initial thoughts is like, yeah, it's just fun. I'm just 4 hours in, so that I can't really give a big detail, like big long detailed, like why everyone's wrong or why they might be right.
But you're liking it so far.
But I'm just ditzing around. I'm playing it on my Xbox. It runs really smooth at a solid 60 FPS, and it is really beautiful. Like I love playing games in 4K on my big 4K TV because there's just something about like the colors that pop in these games. Like the best way I could say it is like the first time I saw Avatar in 1080p. It's just like the colors just popped, and I kind of had that same sensation. Overall, though, there's a lot of lore. I have no idea about the Pillars universe lore.
I don't either.
So I'm just catching up on it, and then like the first companion you meet is just Garrus, from Mass Effect because it's the same voice actor. So it's like, so I'm like, there's Garrus, and then there's Blue Garrus.
Garrus's voice, but it looks like Thane.
Yeah. So so just like I'll say that I was impressed because I ran into 2 voice actors I knew right away. First was Garrus, obviously. And he's just hamming it up. He's doing a really great job. I'm enjoying our conversations with him. And the other guy is from, I think it is the guy who played the bisexual elf in Dragon Age Origins. Zephried is his name.
Now, is there a disc in the Steelbook? Because
sadly no.
No.
But I got a cool map, so that's cool.
Lame, yeah. Physical editions that don't have physical copies.
I got that so much with PlayStation 2. I was like, I got 2 collector's editions, and I just had empty steelbooks. I'm like, this is cool, I guess.
Bummer. But couple things I was going to mention while you guys were talking about with Ninja Gaiden. The camera was always like one of the, when it doesn't come to like the actual like difficulty of the game, the main thing people would complain about is the camera, and that's basically a through line through all the Ninja Gaiden games. You basically just got to get used to it.
Yeah, I'm definitely was one of those people.
The block button is your friend, and that's what I've been trying to explain to like my Zoomer buddies. And
there's no stamina bar. Hold the block button the whole time.
Except on bosses, they punish you.
Yes. Well, the bosses you're not going to run into like the camera issues, but they did say
bullshit.
Okay, to an extent, but block and triangle, exploit that. Your rush attack, but still, like they did say that they were going to revisit and try and improve the camera for it. So I like that they're not just saying it is what it is. They're actually planning on making it better, and that's one that I hopefully that coincides with the physical release for it.
I can handle bad cameras. I mean, we all grew up with it. If you had like a PS1 or something, you obviously knew the infamous tank controls. So I can do it. It's just it's like you got to get used to it. It's like going back to like learn like old like computing things or something. It's like I know how to do this. It's going to take me a minute just to relearn it.
Yeah, I should make Mazza play Fear Effect as a rite of passage. Be like, look, you play Fear Effect, I'll buy you Wukong on PC.
That's getting a remaster, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't wait.
But I want him to play the original. Where they like the original, man, like there were certain parts, because that was a game that was one of the first games to use not pre-rendered backgrounds but FMV backgrounds, like the Resident Evil remake did.
Interesting.
And there were certain areas of the game where the collision detection wasn't right, and you would be on what appeared to be solid ground and you'd fall through the floor.
That happened to me in God of War and Hades. I kept getting like I would fall from that like doom spiral of like the blade pillars, and then Kratos would just like flop on the ground like a fish and fall through the floor. I'm like, cool, I got my health back. That's all I kept saying.
But yeah, speaking of God of War, the other thing I was going to mention is, I never had a PlayStation, and I like hack and slash, so I always wanted to play God of War, but I've never gotten the chance to. So that was one of the things we talked about on an old episode of Party Chat when James and Kay were on, was franchises that you never got around to playing but always wanted to. God of War was one of my answers because I know I would love them. So
should.
I do have God of War 2018 on PC. I haven't played it yet, but I will be playing it at some point.
and Dante's Inferno.
Oh, you know what? I have access to that. I played the demo, but I never actually ended up playing the actual game. But I did like
it's wild.
that I played.
Yeah. It was when EA was still trying.
That's right. It was EA, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
it was that Dead Space era where they were like, we're going to try and do cool, innovative things. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the market's like, we don't trust you, EA. Dead Space still made it, but
I just saw AC's comment over here. Carl's playing 6 games with 5 appendages.
So yeah, he's probably in the middle of Emerald right now.
No, I can't talk and play video games like that.
Yeah,
I find it two things. A, I like when I play a game, I want to get immersed in it, and then I'm like tuning everyone else out. And B, I find that to be very rude.
Do you have any games though, like where it's like you've played it so much, it's not really like playing anymore? Because for me, that's Super Metroid. Like I do a yearly playthrough of Super Metroid.
Funny that you mentioned that. The closest thing for me would probably be Mega Man X3 because I love that one. And I played it a lot recently over the last year and a half, but it had been a long time since before last January. It had been a while since I played it, but that's my favorite Mega Man game. And I think when I ranked my top 10 video games of all time on Fuse, I think that was like my number 8 or number 9. But what I was going to say is, Mart Cyborg used to be co-host on Party Chat when it was on Saturdays, and he wasn't able to make it work for Tuesdays, but he was able to do that. He could be playing a game and be actively involved in the conversation. I have no idea how he did it. Yeah. Amazing talent. I
just think there's some games you can get so comfortable with, and they don't really require your full attention. And yeah, like Angry Canadian says, autopilot engage. You're so comfortable. Like for me, it's like Super Metroid, Super Mario Brothers 1. Like when Nintendo World Championship came out, like for whatever reason, my turbo autism kicked in, and I was just doing speed runs on that game, and I got down to like being able to beat the whole thing and do it in like under 7 minutes. I think my best time was 6:14. I have to go back and like look at the pictures on my phone, but I just got obsessed with it. And then like when we went on vacation, I could not stop playing Super Mario Brothers, and I would just sit there and I was just trying to get my best time down. And I wasn't just playing in World Championships. I was trying to do it on my analog pocket, like do it through FPGA.
Oh, nice. Sorry.
I was say real quick that that is actually a great topic for a future episode of Party Chat. So I wrote that down. So maybe I'll put some more thought into it and see if I come up with anything else in the future.
Gotcha.
So, go ahead. What were you going to say, Carl?
I was going to say there's not a game that I like autopilot to, but my buddy Gus, he came up with this term because I used to go hang out with him. He was a big World of Warcraft guy. And we would just sit down and I just talk to him while he's playing World of Warcraft. But then one day I kind of noticed that like when he's playing World of Warcraft, he would just go to like a main city and just run his character around in circles. And like apparently a bunch of people kind of do this in WoW, where they'll get on their mounts or something and just like run around in circles for no reason. And I just kind of noticed it one day because I brought it up to him. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm doing the World of Warcraft run. And I'm like, what's that? And he's like, well, when you don't really want to do anything, but you don't want to leave the game and you're talking to people, it's just kind of like a natural thing where you just run around the map and do nothing. And I kind of adopted that a little bit when I'm playing Monster Hunter. So if I'm like just talking to someone, I'll be playing Monster Hunter and I'm just running around like the little base in Monster Hunter, just like wasting time. And even my buddy Fernando, Mr. Metal Shred Freak, he even noticed that too because he did the same thing. He's like, why are you just running around? I'm like, I'm just talking to you. That's why.
I used to do that in Destiny. I used to get on Destiny and just hang out with a buddy, and I would just go and farm materials. And like when you had to collect those stupid rocks, and I would do that and just hang out with a buddy of mine on PlayStation Network when we were playing there.
Oh, yeah. I played it. Okay, I was going to ask, what platform were you playing Destiny on? Because I still have one achievement left. I need to get a group together to do the final raid on the heroic difficulty. So I was going to
crossplay.
Not Destiny 1.
Oh,
Destiny 2 is, but not Destiny 1. But As for myself, it's funny you mentioned that because I am currently making my way through Super Metroid on Metroidvania Monday, and I am this close to beating. I'm making sure to get 100% first. So I was planning on finishing Super Metroid last night, but I found out that the dots on the map, normally you would, the dot on the map would indicate that the item there you already collected. And I realized, no, it just indicates that there is an item there. And there's no indicator of whether you picked it up or not. So I thought I had everything on the map, but I'm still missing an energy tank and 2 missile expansions. I'm like, where is it? And I discovered, like, on one of my last items, the dot was there. And then I picked it up. The dot was still there. I'm like, oh, great. Now I got to revisit the entire map. So I got to I did find the last energy tank, but I still have 2 more missile expansions to find before I go and finish the game. So that'll be next episode of Metroidvania Monday. Another thing, speaking of monkey games, I'm currently making my way through Donkey Kong Country. I'm going to be going through the whole trilogy because it's been a very long time since I played them. And those are my favorite platformers of the era that are not run and guns, because I put, that's Mega Man X particularly for me. But on the more modern side of things, I just beat a game called Gris because I'm panic playing it before it leaves Game Pass. I have 2 achievements left, and which are just for collectibles. I'm like, I'll go back and do those later. So I'm kind of moved on. It was I heard people mention this game a lot over the last year or two, like kind of putting it up on a pedestal. And I was like, this game is pretty boring, but fortunately it's pretty short. So I didn't have to put that much time into it, but I think it was overrated from the people I've heard talk about it. It is pretty. It's got a nice art style and it's colorful, but didn't really click. And I just finally beat the final story DLC in Dishonored. I skipped, there's a trial mode, which I skipped that one entirely. After I beat the game, I just did the 2 story DLCs. So I'm kind of moved on from that. I'll probably come back to that eventually, probably after I do Dishonored 2 and Dishonored Death of the Outsider. And then the thing that I started playing last night, I haven't gotten any achievements in it yet, but it's another game that I'm panic playing before it leaves Game Pass at the end of the month. And that is Warhammer 40K Bolt Gun. So I played the first level. I'm liking it so far. And I'll be playing more of it tonight. So that's kind of what I am playing through at the moment. So, all right. Before we move on to our topics, just say hi to some of the other people that showed up in chat. We got Flame Mage is here saying, hey guys, what's up, Flame
Hello.
Mage? Good evening. Snap Rai is here as well. Good evening to you as well, Snap. And
Hello.
Nerd Takes is here as well. What's up, Jay? What is up? How are you doing?
Hello, buddy.
Anger Canadian was saying he plays any of the Halo games on autopilot. What's up, Canadian?
Yeah.
And Flame is saying, I marathon gamed an NES World Championship when I first got it, unlocked all the player icons and stuff.
Ooh, nice.
Cool. I don't really know what that means, but sweet. And Christian Frades is here. I haven't seen him in a while, saying today's his 28th birthday. Well, happy birthday, Christian. Hope
happy
you're doing
birthday,
well. And,
you suck.
To be 28 again. Don't start feeling old. Don't do that. Don't be like, oh, I'm old, I'm 30. Because next thing you know, you wake up and you're 40, and then it's like, what happened?
Oh yeah, that's right.
Speaking of, it was just your birthday last week, so
it was. Yeah.
Happy belated birthday to you.
Well,
someone mentioned it in my chat on one of my streams at the end the last week. I'm like, oh, I got to remember to wish him a happy belated birthday when I have him on stream next week. So happy belated birthday.
Well, thank you. I cannot believe that I'm 40. It's a surreal thing. I don't look or feel 40, I think. But
I agree. Well, I don't know about the feel part, but I'd definitely say you don't look 40.
Yeah.
So.
People at work are like, my wife's grandmother was like, how old are you, Tom? I'm like, she's like, no, let me guess. 34. And I was like, I wish. I wish, yeah. I wish I was 34, but no.
Surrounded by a bunch of gray cocks, as I always say.
I'll be there in a couple years. I'm getting close to myself, but I still got a couple years to go.
Drink your water. Be good to yourself. Take your vitamins.
Drink a lot of coffee.
I do drink coffee.
Yeah, I do not. I don't like coffee.
Oh my goodness.
But Christian's speaking of monkey games. Christian Frady's asking, what about Seth Rogen and Donkey Kong? I think a lot of people that was their least favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, he didn't bother me too much.
My hope for Mario Kart 9, and my hope is just
Flame Age understands, Carl.
There you go.
My hope is that he's the voice of Donkey Kong in Mario Kart 9 because I'll pick him just to piss people off. Because as I'm passing him, he's
That's great. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead and get into tonight's topics. So, as usual, I always offer the guests the opportunity to suggest a topic, and Extra Zero mentioned a topic. We have talked about this on Party Chat before, but I think it was a pretty long time ago before the change up and moving to Tuesday night. So I was like, excellent, it's a great topic. And Extra Zero wanted to talk about favorite gaming video game magazines and any special memories related to them. So I went and dug out a few of my magazines issues because I had no idea where they were. So I had to go in my storage. I didn't even know which crate they were in. So I fished out a few for tonight. But since this was your question, I'll go ahead and let you start us off with your favorite magazine and memories.
So my favorite magazine of all time was GamePro. Now I used to get 4 magazines a month because I had a great aunt who was like a second grandmother to me, and I would go with her grocery shopping on Fridays. And my reward for being, accompanying her and carrying her groceries back into the house was I got a video game magazine while I was there. And again, back in the day, they were $5, but I mean, you're a kid, like, you don't just have $5. But so go one week, I'd get my EGM, I'd get my GamePro, get my tips and tricks. Sometimes I do GamePro 2 or, one of the more fringe ones. I was never like a big Nintendo Power guy, but I really think between EGM, GamePro, tips and tricks. Now, tips and tricks also had a sister magazine. I can't remember what that was called. But those were my main 3, and EGM was always my favorite. And the reason why EGM was my favorite was because, and sometimes too, they'd have like those specialty magazines, like they would be like not strategy guides, but they had like they had multiples from Mortal Kombat that would have they would be special editions. They would have like the EGM buyer's guide. Those were fantastic. They would have ones for hardware. They would have like going through and reviewing all the accessories that came out that year. Then they would have silly ones like, hey, here's behind the scenes making of Mortal Kombat 2. And they would show you how they did like Baraka's makeup. And then there were silly ones where they'd like write stats about write little blurbs about the combatants and their favorite foods, and then have all this behind the scenes making up stuff. But EGM was always the king in my opinion. I think they had the best articles. I think they got probably the best letters submitted from people actually asking. At least they would vet the questions a little bit better. Best envelope art, and I submitted my envelope art a few times, and I would always get excited to see if I made it, and I never did. But I'm sure they had thousands of people submitting. But I loved the thing I loved the most about EGM is their like the way they did the reviews, and they would have 4 reviewers for most games. And the thing that I loved about that is back in the 90s and the early 2000s, I mean, we didn't have reviews at our fingertips. And the other thing that I liked too was that the reviewers didn't always share an opinion, and you could kind of gel and see like who you liked. Like they're like Sushi X, who I think was an amalgamation of other people. I think it was kind of a placeholder, not a person. Dan Shu and Sean Baby are the 3 that I remember the most. And I really realized at one point that like Dan's likes and games really gelled with mine. So when Dan would weigh in his reviews, that resonated with me a bit more because I would go and rent games and I'd be like, yeah, Dan was right about this. And I like that back in the day. The fact that, we had multiple reviewers and they didn't always agree. It was kind of like a Siskel and Ebert dynamic where they didn't always agree on a movie, but you would say like, well, am I Roger Ebert or Gene Siskel? You would kind of figure who you gelled with more. And nowadays, I feel like it's like everybody has to have like this sense of confirmation bias. But I liked back then that when they all agreed, then you knew the game was a hit. Or if they all agreed, the game was crap. But sometimes the game would be a little bit ambiguous and be like, yeah, this is worth my time because I know Dan's kind of into that same niche that I'm in, so I want to go back and check that out. I loved a lot of the articles they did. I remember like one of the ones for when the Game Boy Color was debuted, and they had like this big thing, the color purple. And I just remember like sitting there and like studying all of it. And again, it's silly because the Game Boy Color wasn't that big of an upgrade, but I was like, oh my God, a color Game Boy.
That
Be
was
able to
my
play.
first handheld.
Yeah. I mean, I had a Game Gear back in the day, but I was always envious of the games that were on the Game Boy. Like, don't get me wrong, the Game Gear was impressive, but all I had were like Sonic and,
I think Sonic was the only thing I played on my friend's Game Gear.
yeah. And like with Nintendo, like there's just so much variety and so many, like, I think like in 1998, they had like 10 years worth of games. I was like, wow, I can play all these games in color now on the go. And it was exciting. So that memory stands out. I remember the big write-ups they had on the Ultra 64. And, I remember back in the late 90s, vigorously debating in my mind, like, do I want to get this or do I want to go with the PlayStation? Ultimately, I want the PlayStation because Resident Evil 2 was the game that sold me. I have a not so fond memory with that Earthbound. They had like the Earthbound scratch and sniff ad. Do you remember that?
No.
Oh God, I remember I had to get my Aunt Jean to rebuy me the magazine because I scratched it off and it was just the most pungent stink. Like it actually smelled like skunk, and I was like sitting there, I was like trying to read my magazine. I couldn't get the stink out. I sat it outside. And she was like, well, why'd you set your magazine outside? It's like, because it stinks. And she's like, oh, what happened?
That's hilarious.
I think she went back to the grocery store. I think it was called Mars. And she's like, I think somebody wiped their ass with this magazine. They just like, changed it out for me. But, I had a lot of fond memories. Then again, when you got into the late 90s, I also remember getting and I thought it was a lousy magazine, but the PlayStation magazine, because like demo discs were such a huge cutting edge thing, and that was really exciting. And that was kind of like I think where at least for me, where games magazines peaked with like that PSX magazine and all.
Okay, well, good stuff. And just a moment ago, Paul was coming in saying, howdy. What's up, Paul? Good evening. Good to see you as always.
Hi, Paul.
There is an EGM compendium coming out that's like currently being crowdfunded. Yeah.
Yes, I heard about that. That looked awesome. So I don't even know if I ever actually like had my hands on an EGM.
Oh, wow.
But I'll get to that. Carl, you want to go next?
I just wanted to say shout out to Midwest legend Robert Ebert. At the end of his life, he always had a smile on his face.
Well,
Zero got the joke at least.
I don't know.
He had to get his bottom jaw removed.
Yeah.
So it left him always looking like he had a smile on his face.
Oh, okay.
What was I going to say? For me, I didn't really read too many magazines growing up. I was kind of a little younger at the time. But for me, I was always kind of a fan of Game Informer was the one that I enjoyed the most. And this was their Sony cover for the 25th anniversary, which I actually did buy this very art piece from the artist himself who made this.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So I actually have like a really giant one. I just need to get it framed. But Game Informer, I always thought was like the easiest one to read when we were like in middle school. Somebody would bring it in. We look at the articles. We see like the game reviews and find out what was like, good or bad. And I always felt like their articles were more like easily digestible. It's kind of sad that they're gone now. I used to listen to their podcast every now and then until I just kind of stopped listening to pretty much almost all mainstream gaming outlets circa 2020, I would say. But I'm slowly starting to work my way back to try to find some more like news sources from them every now and then. But Game Informer always had like really cool covers, but this is was like one of their last ones before they went belly up that I actually think was really cool.
That's a great piece of art. Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt like I wanted to share this because, like I said, Game Informer's always been kind of known for really cool covers. They had like really fun ones for Star Wars. Fallen Order was like one of their big ones they did. Uncharted was like one of the big ones. Halo. They've had like a really good run of just like cover art as well, ironically speaking. So rest in peace, Game Informer.
Yeah, I'm surprised you say that with their easiest one to read, because for me, I always thought GamePro was the easiest because they had like I call it like, there's a lot of people that are nostalgic for the GamePro review scores, but I call it like the Denny's review score because you don't need to be able to read in order to understand the review score.
Yeah, I would say, like, for me, because there's a little bit of an age difference between us.
Yeah,
I kind of was a
Oh,
little bit
what a
late.
nice way to call Extra Zero old.
I don't.
No,
Hey, I don't care. You can call
it's
me
roughly
old.
7. It's like roughly 7-year difference. I'm going to be 34 in May, but he just was a little bit older than me and got his skills of reading and everything down faster. Versus, like, for us, like, a lot of those magazines were starting to die out. It's just kind of like you said with the PlayStation magazine. We were just buying them for demo discs.
I beat Super Mario. I beat Super Mario Brothers before I could talk, which is crazy.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it's just one of those things where it's just, like, I just enjoyed Game Informer. It was the one that we had all the time. We didn't really buy magazines because we were kind of more of the internet generation, and we were watching more G4 a lot.
Yeah.
That's where we were getting our news.
It was the best deal in video game magazines. I mean, back when GameStop's Power Up Rewards was just $10. It's like, wait a minute, for $10, I can get a physical magazine shipped to me, and it's actually not a half bad magazine.
When it was useful.
Yeah. And you got discounts on the games, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exactly why I had Game Informer for a good amount of time.
Yeah, if anything, I think it would be cool if they did like a compendium of all like the cover arts of Game Informer. Yeah. That would be pretty cool.
They should do that with basically all these dead gaming magazines.
I think Game Informer just had like the best ones though.
I think GamePro probably had some of the worst. I mean, like, because they had like an in-house artist, and just so much of it always like looked like, very amateurish. Again, like, it was a product of its times, but if you go back and like look at GamePro, it's not like awful, but like it definitely like reeks of early 90s.
So,
like, here, I'll share one of them real quick just so you can see. Let me embiggen this too.
Embiggen this.
my little subtle Simpsons reference here. But yeah, there was the GamePro cover for Street Fighter.
It's like, well, I can tell what characters those are.
You can tell the characters, but again, it's like, again, there's that little bit of again, like, gaming was so niche in the 90s that could you really fault them? But then when you had stuff like EGM and then later Game Informer, I think even Tips and Tricks did a good job. They really just kind of outclassed them.
Yeah. So
that was like the Temu knockoff version. That's the one you buy at the flea market when you're trying to get like your video game action figures.
I will say I was never really a big fan of Nintendo Power, but they were also kind of a first in, best dressed. I mean, like, here, I'll share like one of my favorite EGM covers real quick too. But I mean, this is just like, this is their 100th cover. And
GamePro, I was gonna say, like thewish.com.
The
GamePro we have at home.
And of course, they were owned by Ziff Davis, who, if you know anything about Ziff Davis,
don't know that name.
They own a lot of stuff these days. But yeah, like there was fun to it, and it's funny now. It's like, save for Bomberman, Crash, and Lara Croft, you kind of have like Smash Brothers, I guess, and
Mega Man, Yoshi, Donkey Kong, Mario, Sonic, Pac-Man, Ken and Ryu. Yeah, they're basically all in Smash.
Yeah. And well, Dirk's not in there either, but But yeah.
So, and friend of the channel, Stars Marvel Purist, is coming and saying, "What's up, buddy? Good to see you, Justin. Hope you're doing well tonight." And good to see you. We're just talking about our favorite video game magazines at the moment. So, for me, there was 4 that I read. I did have Game Informer, basically because, like you mentioned, for $10 you get the magazine and the their special rewards, and get discounts on their games and stuff. So it's like, why the heck not? It basically pays for itself. So I had that one for a decent amount of time. I don't really remember anything too specific about it, but I do remember having it, reading it, and enjoying it. And I remember their magazine was physically larger than basically all the other ones. And then the other one that I had for a short period of time was PC Gamer, because it was a transition period where I went from Nintendo to PC gaming. Then I went to Xbox, so I had PC Gamer for probably a year, maybe two. But those ones were the ones I think I found a couple of those issues, but I didn't pull them out. But my main thing is I had Nintendo Power for probably I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years. That was my first gaming magazine, and I still have a few of them. I went and pulled a few of them out. Again, I don't really have anything in particular that stood out to me, but one thing that I remembered, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So if you had a whole year's worth of issues, the spines made an image.
Oh yeah.
So this is what year was this one? Where is the date? It's got the volume 164 through 173, and that one was link. Shoot, I don't see a date on here, but yeah, that was a cool thing that they did. Their spines made images. I don't remember when they started it, but I had a good number of them. But these more recent ones that are covering Wii games, these ones don't have the spine thing on them. But this is September, December, and January of 2007, 2008. So these ones are a little bit newer, but they didn't have the spine thing. But I pulled out. I was like, Metroid, my number 2 favorite video game franchise. So I got to pull that one out. Smash Bros. Brawl, which is my favorite Smash, and as mentioned, Ninja Gaiden Dragon Sword, which was the DS game, which introduced Momiji. That was her introduction to the franchise. But yeah, Nintendo Power I was a big fan of it. I read every issue from whenever I signed up to it to whenever I stopped getting it, when I switched over. That was probably when I switched over to PC Gamer, because I did have Super Nintendo through Wii when it came to consoles. But that Wii generation, I basically just got it for Smash Bros. And Metroid Prime 3. I didn't really get a whole lot of Wii games. Oh, and Twilight Princess, because that's my second favorite Zelda game behind Ocarina of Time.
A quick question. How'd you guys store your magazines? Because I had, between magazines and strategy guides, I had so many. I had a very deep, it was my bottom dresser drawer. And I just accumulated all these magazines. And I remember getting get talk hey, why are you holding on to all those old magazines? You don't even own half the games anymore. But I back then we didn't have the internet, and sometimes it's weird thinking back to when I was a teenager. I would get nostalgic for things from when I was 7, 8, 9, and I just kept them all in a bottom drawer. And I remember I was laying in bed one night and I just heard this crack, and the whole bottom of the drawer fell out because the magazine's weight
too heavy.
Yeah,
oh wow!
it killed the whole bottom of the drawer just fell out under the weight of the magazines.
I had a bookshelf in my room, and I had a shelf where I put all the magazines. I don't have all of them. I did get rid of a bunch of them at some point, but some of them, I don't know why, some I kept and some I didn't, went into a box, and I've moved 6 times since, but I still have them. And they just ended up in boxes. So that's why I went and had to go look for it today. Carl, did you have a special way to store your Game Informers?
Yes, on the floor.
Do you have any of your issues still?
Hell no.
Okay, no, I didn't think so. But the other thing that I completely forgot to mention about Nintendo Power is they had incentives for subscribing for a year at a time. They, if you, instead of buying it off the rack or whatever for $5, you subscribe for a year for 60 or something, and we'll give you this or that. So that's how I ended up with my gold N64 controller and my banana Donkey Kong 64 controller was through subscribing to Nintendo Power. So those are cool.
It's so weird thinking back that we used to have such good perks.
Yeah. So, but for me, my favorite was official Xbox magazine. Similarly,
Also had good demo discs.
That's what I was going to mention. Is the demo discs were great. I played every single one of them, and they had a bit of a redesign because when it was original Xbox time, they looked like the original Xbox logo. Shout out to James because Unreal Championship 2. He simps for that game, understandably so.
Jade Empire, very great game too.
Yeah, Jade Empire. We talked about that, I think, on last party chat, or maybe it was top 5 briefly. But then when 360 came around, they kind of redesigned with the 360 logo. But I subscribed towards the end of the Xbox life cycle because I didn't actually have very many original Xbox games. I had a very small handful. It wasn't until 360 came around that I was really invested in Xbox, and I've got a decent sized 360 library. And that's why I was reading every episode, every issue, played every demo disc. And speaking of what you were talking about there a minute ago, Carl, the podcast is I listened to every single episode of the official Xbox Magazine podcast, which for 4 or 5 years was hosted by Ryan McCaffrey, who's now at IGN, and Dan Amrich, who went on to be basically, you guys know Major Nelson, right?
Yeah. Larry here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, that's another thing. I listened to Major Nelson's podcast basically that whole time too. So I was going back and forth each week between listening to the official Xbox Magazine podcast and Larry Herb's or Major Nelson podcast. But anyways, where I was going with that is that Dan Amrich, who was Ryan's co-host on the official Xbox Magazine podcast, went on to become essentially the Major Nelson, but specifically for Activision. So he went on to Activision. I don't know if he's still there, but I ran into him at WonderCon in like 2010 or so, and I got a picture with him. So that was kind of cool. But he left the podcast, obviously, when he left OXM, official Xbox Magazine. And because I was, so invested in Xbox and playing all the games. And that's when achievements got their hooks into me. I subscribed to GameFly, so I was renting tons of games and playing through tons of games. I was like, man, I would love to be the co-host on the official Xbox Magazine podcast after Dan left. But I don't remember if I ever reached out to him, but that didn't happen. But I would have loved to, and probably would have got me started on a journey kind of like, doing this YouTube thing way back. But I was listening to it until Ryan left, because that's when he went to IGN, and that's when they got 2 other people. They kept the podcast going for some amount of time after that. I have no idea. But after Ryan was out, that's when I stopped listening to the podcast, because not that they were bad, I just didn't care for them. And I didn't really have any connection to them like I did for listening to Dan and Ryan for like 4 years.
I can understand why you had a connection to Ryan. You kind of look like him.
Well, you know what's really funny? Speaking of, I just played Dishonored. There is a very frequently used character model in Dishonored, and I think it looks almost exactly like Ryan McCaffrey. And every time I see this character model, I'm like, it reminds me of Ryan McCaffrey. So I don't know if anyone's ever pointed that out to him, but there's a character model in Dishonored that looks just like him. So, but yeah, Xbox Magazine was my favorite thing. I pulled out a couple of my issues. Halo 3. Let's see here. More Halo 3. What do we got here? Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, or Modern Warfare, the first one, and GTA Mass Effect and Rock Band. So
it still blows my mind the 360 turns 20 this year.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I know. Why'd you have to go and say that? Because I was having a nice time with you tonight.
Because it's been on my mind, man. I remember being a 20-year-old dude and going and being so hyped for that, and
my goodness,
plopping down my $50 to reserve it. I actually have a really fun 360. I know I've told it on the Melee's podcast before.
I have a fun 360 story as well that I've told multiple times, but I'll go ahead and tell it after you're done.
So yeah, I pre-ordered mine at GameStop, or it was EB Games at the time. I plunked down my $50 and had it guaranteed. I had a buddy, still one of my best friends. In fact, I'm going to be a groomsman in his wedding. It's May. We're still friends to this day. And he kind of waffled, and then when he decided he wanted one, they had sold out of pre-orders. So we waited all the way until November, and we had an unseasonably warm November. And I remember he was like, "Hey," he's like, "Are you off?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." I took off because I took off because I was working for Verizon at the time selling phones, and I was like, "Yeah, I took off because I'm gonna be playing Xbox 360 all night and into the next day." And he's like, so do you want to go wait in line with me at Target? And I was like, or actually, at first he did Walmart. He wanted to do Walmart. We went to Walmart, and they're like, yeah, we don't have any. Then we went across the street to the Target, and they were like, yeah, we have them, but we don't open until, because like that was the thing, is Target used to open, and I think they still do open way later than not Best Buy, but Walmart. So he basically had me hold a place in line and ran, and we literally camped out in front of the Target, and like we were, and he's a little bit old. He's like a year older than me. So like we ended up like, he brought a bottle of vodka and orange soda. And that was the thing we called we made this drink called the Kel. So we were like in our tent. And I remember like I have a no scalping policy. Like I don't scalp consoles, but I ended up getting my 360 at that Target. I still got the GameStop one, or EB Games one. But like they came up to me, they handed me a voucher for one with a hard drive, and because that was the thing, is like they had the arcade and they had the
right. The arcade only had the memory card; it didn't have a hard drive. I forgot about that.
So they didn't even ask me; they just handed me a voucher for it, and I said, "Okay." So I started making phone calls, and a buddy of mine was like, "Oh my god, you have a spare?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What do you want for it?" I was like, "Retail." And he's like, "Oh my," because at the time, like smartphones weren't really a thing. I had like the Motorola version of the BlackBerry, and so I was like looking at eBay Mobile and saying like, holy crap, these are going for $1,500.
Jeez.
Yeah, but I sold it to him for retail, and people can call me an idiot, but I don't believe in scalping. I want it to go to somebody that's going to enjoy it. And it was around Christmas time, and he just really wanted one and didn't think he was going to get one, and he was in college at the time, and so I sold it to my buddy Matt, and I ended up keeping the one from Target. And like we had a fun time hanging out with people, having drinks. Again, I was slightly underage, but having fun, talking to all kinds of gamers. It was like the ultimate midnight launch. And so I was like, I'm going to keep this Target one. I went through 8 Xbox 360s. That's how bad the QC was for me. My buddy Matt, I gave him the one from EB, and he had a college roommate who was obsessed with Madden, put so much Madden playtime on it. When he bought his house, he bought a new, like he went through a divorce and everything. He got a new house, went to his housewarming party. I see this Xbox 360, the one that was from EB Games. And I was like, how many did you have? Did you get that replaced or fixed? He's like, no. I was like, wait a minute.
You gave me.
He has the rare Xbox 360 that never failed, and that could have been mine.
Oh, that is hilarious.
I wouldn't trade the memories of hanging outside that Target and meeting all the people and having fun. But had I just kept the one from EB Games, I would have never died.
That's a great story. Yeah, I went through 3 myself, but 8, why? My goodness.
Yeah.
But yeah, good stuff. So yeah, for me, the main reason why I wanted to get a 360 is because Perfect Dark, as I mentioned just recently on a stream, was my favorite game of all time at the time. And the sequel is a launch, it's a 360 exclusive launch title, Perfect Dark Zero. So I was like, heck yeah, I want to do whatever I can to get it. I didn't pre-order it, but I was like, I want to get a 360 as soon as possible. I did get a copy of Perfect Dark, not like gifted to me for Christmas, but like I bought it with my own money around Christmas because I was so excited to play it, but I didn't have a 360 to play it on. So I had that game for probably about 3 months until I could actually play it, or 2 months, because basically like every day I was calling like every Best Buy, GameStop, Walmart in my area every day, like, hey, you got any 360s? You got any 360s? Got any 360s? And then like the middle of February, I could go back and look at the first achievement I got to figure out what date it was, because when I was in college at the time, after I got it, I had to take it to like the network IT guys on the campus because they had to like create they had to get the MAC address off my 360 so they could make an exception in the firewall so I could actually use Xbox 3 Live and create a gamer tag and stuff. And so I was able to get achievements online, and I could go check my timestamp on my first achievements. But I was calling around everywhere, and it was in February.
Hello?
I think he's his internet.
Oh no, he's freaking out. He had a stroke. That's the worst face for him to be frozen at. Oh no!
My freaking internet. I hear it's fine. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now we can hear you.
You just had the look of terror on your face. Oh no, he's gone. Oh, he's back.
My goodness, my stupid freaking internet. I hate Comcast. But
Oh, that's so funny.
the only other option I have is AT&T, and it is not. It's even worse than Comcast.
Yeah, we don't buy from the evil empire.
What was the last thing you heard from my internet went stupid?
I kind of forgot because it was too funny to just see that face.
All right. So, anyways, yeah, I was calling around every Walmart, Target, GameStop in my area, and that's what I was saying. It was early February, so of 2006. So, almost 20 years ago, and one day I called the GameStop, and they're like, "Yeah, we've got a few left," and I was like, "Put it on hold. I'll be there in like 15 minutes." So, like, all right. So I go book it down the street to that GameStop, and I walk in. I'm like, "Hey, I just called like 15 minutes ago. You said you had some 360s. I said, put it on hold. I'll be right there. I'm here." And he's like, "Sorry, dude. I just sold the last one." I'm like, like my heart sank. I was like, "No." And he's like, "I'm just kidding you, man. I got him back here. But your price was priceless." I'm like, "Touche, sir. Touche." So I was able to get my 360 that day, and went and got to play it. And I went because I already had Perfect Dark Zero, but I was like, I want to get something else while I'm at it. And so I went down. I don't know if it was the same day or a couple days later, but I went to Best Buy and I picked up. I don't even know why I bought it, but I picked up PGR 3, Project Gotham Racing 3, and I freaking love that game. And I'm so glad I did. I don't know why, but I love that game, and I picked it up. And so those were my two first 360 games. And a lot of people hate on Perfect Dark Zero. I think it's okay game. I don't think it sucks like a lot of people say. I think it was overly hated.
I think it was the multiplayer wasn't what they were expecting, because I think that was a game that people bought thinking that it was going to be a contender to Halo 2. And they're like, "Oh, Halo 2 is going to get dethroned." And then I remember everybody just going back to Halo 2.
For another thing I've mentioned often is that me and my buddies, we went to midnight launch for Halo 2. They actually had a Halo 1 contest. Whoever won the contest got a free copy of Halo 2, and one of the buddies in our group got it. But we all bought our copies of Halo 2. We played it for a couple weeks and went back to playing Halo 1 because we didn't like Halo 2 that much. But yes, when it came to the multiplayer, it was definitely disappointing. But so got to catching up on chat here. Vanquish is here. Good evening, Vanquish. Good to see you as always. Says, I miss EGM and Game Informers. Yep. And Stars Malver Pierce said, I had EGM and Game Informer as well. He was a Sega and PlayStation guy. Neighbors had SNES and original NES, and then got N64. Good stuff. Oh, and how he stacked his magazines. Stacked them flat down in extra comic book short boxes. Nice. I was wanting to get into comics. I just never did, so I did not have any short boxes. And Aaron Canadian saying, because he's over in Japan, he says, I just remembered that Nintendo makes free magazines out here, being Japan, that releases every quarter. They aren't as nostalgic as Nintendo Power, but still fun to read. That is really cool.
No kidding.
So you know what else nobody talks about with the 360 is how it had a built-in game.
Oh, Hexic.
Yeah.
I was talking about that with someone one time, and they're like Hexen. I'm like, no, that's a very, very different game.
Because I just went back to look at all the games I played in 2005, and so
that was a good puzzle game. It was hard. Yeah. I still don't have the completion in that because the last two achievements in that are insanely difficult. But that was a good puzzle game. I like that one.
But
yeah, that game reminds me of a ghost story. So there you go.
So, and Canadian is saying you never want to freeze frame in front of Extra Zero.
I need you to clip out that face later, Zero, for memes.
I'll have to go check it out afterwards and see what the face was. So, all right. So, next topic on the agenda for tonight is one that I've had on the back burner for a while. I was like, this would be a good one to bring up. So, I'm so first off, did you two play Shadows of Mordor or Shadows of War?
Not really, no.
No. Okay. I really enjoyed those games. I like Shadows of Mordor more than I like Shadows of War, but they were both fun games.
I played Mordor, but not War.
Oh, okay. So you
Like
just played the first one.
I own War. I got it in a bundle, but I've never committed the time because that's a time sync game, or those are
That-
time sync. Yeah.
Yeah, so Shadow of War isn't
Mhm.
that bad. Shadow of War, if you play through the entire third act, which is
Mhm.
basically the epilogue, that can take up a time. That I haven't done that part yet, which is called the Shadow Wars.
Mhm.
That's basically the only thing I still have left to go back in that game and do. But if you just like do the main story, it's not that bad. But yeah, if you're doing everything, it's a lengthy game. But I like Shadow of Mordor better. But freaking WB went and trademarked, copyright, patented, whatever their nemesis
Mhm.
system in that game, which is a really scummy move. But I don't remember where it was, but something I was listening to one time was mentioned like, oh, it's it's a bummer we don't have that. We could do such amazing things with that. And I was like, oh, that's a great topic for party chat. What franchise would you like to see the nemesis system get integrated into, utilized, whatever? So the nemesis system.
Nemesis.
The nemesis system. What game would you love to see the nemesis system get utilized in? So Carl, why don't you start us off with this one?
So, explain the nemesis system for me.
So they kind of upgraded it in Shadow of War because they really expanded upon it. But in Shadow of Mordor, at least, whenever you got killed by whenever you got killed, not whenever you died, but if you got killed by an enemy, they would essentially level up and they would get new perks so that next time you encountered them, they would be stronger than they were previously. They took that in War, and in War you actually build armies, and there's basically like rankings and stuff. So they really expanded upon it in Shadow of War. But in Shadow of Mordor, you don't really build armies, but there is like this kind of like pyramid of who reports to who. So the higher up the tier, the stronger the orc is, and every time they kill you, they get stronger and they get new buffs and stuff. And it was a really cool system that no other games have been able to use because of it. So since you are, I should have asked you this before we went live, but since you aren't as familiar with the system because you didn't end up playing it, we can get back to you if you want.
No, I've played a little bit of one of them. I can't remember, and I knew what happens with it, but I couldn't remember it. I haven't fully invested any time into them, but I remember something like that happened where an orc got promoted because he killed me, but I couldn't remember all the details. You know what? If it was allowed to be done, they could really make a fun like mafia style game with that, or they could make like
Totally.
just like some type of organized crime kind of deal where you have to like take out people and like promote people to like the head of the families and stuff like that. Like maybe even like Yakuza could find a way to implement that system a little bit, especially with their new project that they got coming out. I feel like that would be really cool for like just an organized crime type of game.
Yeah, I came up with a few answers to this one myself, and then I did some Googling to scroll through some forums and postings and stuff to see what other people said. And I saw someone mention something about Mafia in one of them. I was like, I haven't played any of them, but that seems like a perfect fit.
Mm-hmm. It just feels like it would be perfect for like organized crime kind of games.
Totally. So, what about you, Zero? What would you like to see use the Nemesis system?
I've got a 3-tiered answer to this. So we're going to start off with the third tier being like if it has to stay exclusive to WB, if they're not going to license out, I would like to see, because Batman doesn't kill. And now I had been playing before I broke a toe. I broke a toe on Christmas Eve. I haven't gone back to the game because I broke a toe playing Arkham Shadow, which is the VR game.
The VR one. Okay. Yeah. I thought you were going to say Arkham Origin since that one takes place at Christmas. I was like, how'd you break a toe playing Arkham Origin? Arkham Shadow. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, good game. But I have a very heavy coffee table, and I was an idiot and I didn't move the coffee table, and I just stubbed my toe really hard on it. And I was just like, great. And I would love to see a return to form if they can do it. Because I preface with I've been playing Arkham Shadow because not all is lost with the potential for the Arkham universe. If you just put Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League in a bubble, pretend like it never happened, we can still we can still have good games in that universe. Now, Batman doesn't kill. Imagine, you're Batman and you're beating up some street level thugs, and just like because they kind of had that in Arkham City with Mr. Freeze, right? Mr. Freeze didn't use the Nemesis system, but you had to keep changing your tactics up to fight him. And I
we
think
talked about that on both on Party Chat and on Top 5, because that in Party Chat we talked about favorite boss fights, and in Top 5 we just talked about our favorite bosses, and Freeze was on my list for both of those because of that.
Yeah. And just it makes it such a standout boss fight. Imagine if you had certain hood level, street level thugs, and they learn from Batman's tactics, and you get like a gang leader, like for like one of the Jokers, or one of the guys that like Bane has, and they're up in their doses of venom just to try and get an edge fighting you. And since it's WB, Batman's a no-kill character. I mean, obviously in Shadow and War, the orcs keep coming back. My second tier to that is, while I kind of want more traditional Zeldas, I would love to see that happen with some of the Moblin leaders in like an open world Zelda. Just copy that.
Thinking about that today, because someone in one of those forums I was looking at mentioned Zelda, and I was like, in the newer, like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, that makes perfect sense. And the older ones, maybe, but the newer ones, that would fit in perfect.
And then the last of that is, thinking like, well, if they were to go out to like, say, like Capcom and doing the whole like orcs keep coming back. Imagine a Resident Evil where you have a big G or C or T virus monster, and every time you take it down, you can either evade it or it comes back bigger and stronger. And I guess a fourth one popped into my head. Imagine a game like Fable, where you have, like, again, if you do a good run in Fable, well, you're not killing people. Well, if you want to be a good character in Fable, like, you have to spare lives, but every time you spare a life, they come back. So you have like your incentive, like playing as a good character is a more difficult run because they keep coming back bigger and badder. Whereas you could take the easier way out and kill your enemies, but it makes you a bad person. Like,
so
that
nemesis
would be
system would only apply if you're playing good, not bad.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a cool idea. I hadn't thought of that one. But Arkham was definitely on my list of franchises. I think we could make a great use of the nemesis system. So let's see here. Another one that I saw someone mention in in one of those forums was Ghost of Tsushima.
Mm-hmm.
That could be pretty cool. I've still only put about 15 hours into that. That's one of those ones on the back burner for now, but I'm very much looking forward to getting back to it and playing through it in its entirety at some point. But one of the two that I thought, or actually three that I thought of, the first thing that popped into my head when I was thinking about the answer to this question, I was like, Assassin's Creed. But more specifically, and this part was someone mentioned it in the forum, and I was like, oh, that is a good idea, is if it was more so in the in AC4 Black Flag, and it had to do with like your pirates and your pirate lords and stuff, and the ships and stuff that you're fighting against. So like, that would be dope, and that'd be way better than freaking Skull and Bones ever was.
Hey, you fight somebody, they come back with like a hook or a peg leg, and
yeah. So it's like so that the pirate thing wasn't my idea, but I was like, Assassin's Creed was the first franchise that popped in my head. But the pirate thing, I'm like, oh, that would be great. And then the other thing that I thought of was Crackdown, because sorry, Carl, I'm mentioning Crackdown again.
No, you're fine.
But I love all three Crackdown games, and that also seemed like that would be a great setting. The open world games, and you're hunting down gang leaders. That could be a great setting for it. And then a joke answer I came up with, but it would be funny for the super masochist, because I just played through this game and I did not, and I finished it 100%, got all the achievements, and I was not a big fan of it, but I saw it through the end, and that was Dark Souls. Every time you die, the enemy that killed you gets stronger, so it becomes harder and harder. So if you keep dying at the same boss, they get harder and harder and harder. It's like, I would never play this, but the masochists might enjoy that. So I was like, for normal people, that would not be that would be a joke answer. But
where's Dude in the chat when you need him?
He's doing Halo Infinite over on Melee channel right now, but he would probably be here if he wasn't doing that right now. But yeah, because he was coaching me through Dark Souls. We'll be doing more reverse Dark Souls tomorrow night, because I'm now that I've beaten it, I'm watching him play through it and show me how it's done. But yeah, dude, I'll have to ask him tomorrow night when he's playing. Hey, would you be up for this idea? Because he loves Dark Souls. I was not a fan of it, to put it nicely. But yeah, I thought that would be an interesting spin on Dark Souls to make it even harder than it already is. So, BD Jake is here saying, like the stream, nerds. What's up, Jake? Hope you're doing well. Good to see you tonight. And I'm still looking forward to our open mic part 3. Let me know. Can't wait to talk to you some more. And Amin Ra is here as well with the customary moo. Moo to you too, Amin Ra. Good to see you. Good evening to you. So, right. Oh, that's funny. I didn't even think about that, and we didn't mention it, but you mentioned, Resident Evil for the Nemesis system, Nemesis being in Resident Evil.
Yeah.
I just connected those dots. It's like,
I just thought about it because, like Resident Evil 2 being one of my favorites, like every time you take William Birkin down up until the end, he like gets a new mutation. Or, I mean, I guess kind of, if you think about it, they almost had it in Resident Evil 2 where you're going up against Mr. X. And he does get more and more aggressive as the game goes on. But that's more of a game design thing and not if you, whack the bee's nest, does it get more challenging?
Yeah. So, I've watched most of the Resident Evil movies. I know it's not a great interpretation of the games, but that's basically my exposure to Resident Evil because I don't typically do scary games. I did most of Resident Evil 4, but I never actually finished it.
Do you know who John Graham is? RB and the Chief John Graham?
Oh, yes.
So it's funny. He made a post the other day because he's Canadian, and he was talking about like how Canadian cinema just doesn't really have an identity, something along those lines. And I was like, I could have sworn I've seen some like decent Canadian movies. Obviously, they had to have had some good exports. And I looked, and Resident Evil Afterlife is the highest grossing Canadian movie of all time.
Oh boy,
not a great ringing endorsement for Canadian cinema.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So, all right. Next topic on the agenda for tonight. Someone mentioned this in a super chat on a stream I was watching like a week ago, and I was like, "Oh, that's a great topic for party chat." So I wrote it down. I don't remember who super chatted it, so I apologize for not being able to mention the person by name. But it was from a super chat, and that was obviously this wouldn't probably be what we would be doing in our last 24 hours, but for the sake of this topic, it's great. So the world's coming to an end in 24 hours. What video game are you playing? So I'm sure we'd probably be doing more important things than playing video games. But if you were playing a video game in your last 24 hours, what would it be? So I have a couple answers because you know what, I'll go first because I haven't started any of our topics yet tonight. So I have a couple of them because there's a couple of games I was like shorter games that I could probably get through in 24 hours. But first off, I got to play a little bit more Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. You guys know that's my favorite game of all time. I love playing the multiplayer, and I got to get a few more matches in. But that wouldn't take too terribly long. As for like actually playing through the game, I wouldn't be able to make it through all the Mass Effect games in 24 hours. So I was like, that's off the table. But some games that I could probably make it through in 24 hours, as we were mentioned earlier, Ninja Gaiden Black and Ninja Gaiden 2, because it has been way too long since I played them, and I absolutely love those games. I'm like, I got to play through them one more time before the world ends. And then the last one on here, another game that is I already mentioned it earlier, but one of my favorite games of all time. I think I listed it as like number 6 or 7 on my top 10 of all time. And it's been way too long since I played it. And I could probably burn through it really quickly because I know the game like the back of my hand because I've beaten it so many times. That is the Ocarina of Time would probably be the other one that I would try to make it through in my last 24 hours because it's been way too long since I played that one as well. So what about you guys? What games would you be playing in the last 24 hours on Earth?
And I just go for the comfort food games. I'd go for like original Resident Evil 2. I do like the remake, but I view like the original to be such a comfort food game.
Okay.
I'd probably play through Mario 3 just because I have so many. I prefer Super Mario World, but Mario 3, I got it on my actual 5th birthday back in 1990.
Nice. And
it was just such an insane thing. It was such a big deal to get such a landmark game that was released on my actual birthday. Like, you know, when we were kids growing up, I don't know if it was like this for you guys, but like to get a game on a release day was a huge deal. And for me, Mario 3 came out on my actual birthday in
Oh,
1990.
okay. That's awesome. I thought you just meant you got it for your birthday, but you got it for your
I
birthday
did,
on
yeah.
launch day.
On
They
launch day,
coincided.
yeah.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I don't remember. It was probably my grandmother that got it. I have pictures of me because I actually there's an episode of My Retro Life. I submitted the pictures where I got it on my 5th birthday. I'll see if I can pull that up. But I would probably just want to play through some comfort food games, and then if I were to
that's
play,
basically what my answer was.
if I were to play anything modern, I mean, I know people might scoff at this one. I don't care because it's my choices. I love Max Payne 3. I think that's the best. I think that's like one of my favorite games to just blow off steam to. So I'd probably just play Max Payne 3. I know there's all the games you can play. You're talking about 2 classics. And Super Metroid would be in there too. Though I again, for me, Super Metroid's a yearly thing. Every January, I replay through it. But I'd want to definitely do. I definitely would want to do Mario 3, and would definitely want to do Resident Evil 2, and I guess Max Payne 3, or you know what? No, Fall of Cybertron. I'd want to replay Fall of Cybertron. I can't not play that. Like, the world's gone out.
I've heard those games are great, but I've never gotten a chance to play them.
Do you have them?
I'm gonna play them soon. That's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
What was that, Zero?
I was gonna say, do you have them like in any of your libraries? Did you ever pick them up? You just didn't. Oh, okay.
No, I have, and they're delisted, so I have to get them physically. Which
hopefully that changes soon. Like, Microsoft's trying, and Hasbro has been putting out products for Transformers Devastation, which is an awesome beat 'em up from Platinum that a lot of people slept on. But yeah,
they put one of them. You can wish list one of them on the PlayStation Store. I know that.
Yeah, and Activision has been. I don't know what happened to it, but I think they put out a poll not that long ago of like, hey, what dormant franchises of ours would you like to see make a comeback? And I know a lot of people are like, bring back those Fall of Cybertron or War for Cybertron games. I've heard nothing but good things about those.
Yep.
But speaking of Mario 3, I think it was Mario 3. I got a copy of it as well for my birthday one year. But the thing was, they got me the NES one, and I didn't have an NES. I only had a Super Nintendo. But I did play it because I had Mario's 1, 2, and 3 in the All-Stars on Super Nintendo. And then one of the other things I was going to mention about Super Metroid is that this is not the first time I've played it, but is the first time I've played it in a very long time. I want to say this is my 3rd time playing Super Metroid. And it is... I was actually just talking about this last night. It's good, but there are a lot of little things that irk me about it. So, no issue with anyone who absolutely loves that game, but I think playing it now and never have it... Well, if you had never played it before... I think people probably definitely wouldn't have quite as high of a wouldn't see it in as high of standing as most people talk it up to be. It's good, but I don't think it's great. So, and we got our other co-host just joined us. Oh, never mind. That was you sharing your screen. I thought Ryan joined us.
There it is. That's my 5th birthday. And that was a bowling alley birthday. And there's me. Really like zoned in on the back of that box. You can kind of guess the time period with the mullets going around.
It's in the 80s, but it feels like such a different time.
I mean, it was technically 1990.
Yeah, early 90s. Obviously I didn't pick my hairstyle back then, but I had a mullet in the early 90s as well.
So, yeah, that was a very red letter day for me.
So, what about you, Carl? What are you playing in your last 24 hours?
We're playing all the porn games that we can. Why not? At that point, I'm going to stream them. I'm going to violate all the TOSs. Who cares? What am I going to lose?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I bought one for Mazza earlier that he hasn't refunded me on yet, but Ryan might appreciate this one because it's a dinosaur themed game.
No, because his background for a while with him with the T-Rex or Raptor, whatever that was.
Yes.
That's funny.
Carl, do you have any specific ones in mind?
No. I have none in mind.
You got to use the Mazda one. What Mazda says, all of them.
We're just going to go like, what's the top seller? And I'm going to be like, this is what they said was the best porn game before we died, huh? This is what they said, huh?
The game was called Mutant Alley Do the Dinosaur, and he is not yet refunded.
Oh, poor Mazza.
So we're going with our heartfelt favorite picks, and Carl's here burning down the world with more chaos.
We're already going down. We might as well just really go into full degeneracy at this point. Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go out with my comforts. I'm like, you got plenty of time for comforts. You've already done all that. We're going. We're going out in style. We're gonna buy any mushrooms and everything we can, and we're gonna trip.
And
that meteor hits. We're gonna go into a full Pink Floyd concert.
Mazza redeemed it.
Redeemed it in real time.
Yeah. Oh no.
All right, that was not what I was expecting to hear, Carl, but I love it.
You got to do it, right?
So,
Neil, you should have been like, I'm finally going to play a scary game, because what's the point to be afraid of anything anymore?
I wouldn't want to play. If I haven't played a scary.
How does it matter? It's like, oh yeah, we're gonna die anyway. What am I afraid of now?
That's really the best time to play like a scary game. Like,
it's like, oh no.
I want to spend my last hours playing something that I enjoy.
Then just get like high on ketamine and just play. There you go. You'll enjoy it even more.
I thought you were gonna say play high on life. I'm like, that's not scary.
Or
just
the world ends with you.
Yeah, might as well, right? What are you worried about? Like, yeah, let's experience all the terrible things that we can find at once. That if you're straight edge, well, who cares if I overdose on heroin? Why does it matter?
Oh,
I want to see colors and sounds I never knew existed.
I want to see sounds and hear color.
Exactly.
What was it?
I am the Daredevil.
Games I've heard of, but I've never played, but I've heard by reputation. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. And what was that other one? Something about I'm the Man. Who's the man?
We're all the man.
I don't know.
Someone mentions it in chat like every once in a while.
I have no idea what that is.
Like,
I've never heard of that.
Apparently, like I'm probably butchering the name, but it's something about something the man. I want to say Canadian is the one who's mentioned it before. So Canadian, if you're listening, what game is it that I'm thinking of? I'd love to hear if that was you. I could
talk about Pepsi Man.
No, it was like some like freaky game. Something about I want to be the man. I think is what it's called.
I want to be the man.
Ring a bell?
No.
I want to say that's what it was. I think it was. No, I think it was Cherrick Seeks that mentioned that game.
I'm gonna rescind my previous ones because I'm gonna show you guys what I really want to play.
Oh, you're going chaos mode too?
Going chaos.
We gooning? We got a full goon.
What are we about to see here?
Corey in the house.
In the house. Hell yeah.
I know absolutely nothing about this. It was a show, right?
Yeah, Corey's in the White House.
Okay.
Isn't that like one of the jokes Limited Run does at their shop? This super rare copy of Corey in the house.
All right.
Why not?
Fun for a laugh.
He's playing all the bad licensed Corey in the house games. I'm playing the Gooner games, and Neo's over here like, you know what? I want to have happy memories when I go out.
We'll play Bebe's Kids on Super Nintendo.
Bebe's Kids is the best show ever, man.
It's a great movie.
It was a great movie. I love that movie.
I remember I got Jarek to play that on stream once, and he made it pretty far. I got to commend him. I was like, oh man, this is rough.
Neil, you never seen Bebe's Kids?
Never even heard of it.
Oh my God, what is wrong with you? Go watch Bebe's Kids after this.
Oh, Canadian says it wasn't me. So sorry, Canadian. I thought it was you. I'm pretty sure it was Cherrick Seeks that told me about this game. I'm almost positive it's called I Want to Be the Man or something along those lines.
Bebe's Kids.
What is Bebe's Kids?
Well, you just look it up and you'll know.
Is it? How do I spell it? Like BEBE?
Yep.
Spell like a black person. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's an animated thing.
That's great.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
This is my first introduction to black people at the age of 5.
I'm not very well culturally developed, so that's why I've never heard of it.
Although I had to stop. I bit my tongue so hard on that one. That was such a layup for me too. Why would you do that to me?
While we're on the topic, my first job, I had a coworker named Walter, and he was like this 400-pound black guy, and he was asking me about my culturedness, we'll say. And he asked me, have I ever seen any of the Tyler Perry movies? I was like, I have seen a few of them, and it like almost knocked him out of his chair. He was like shocked that I had seen some Tyler Perry movies.
Stop! I'm holding back so much.
Every time I hear the name Walter, I just think of Mike Ehrmantraut from Breaking Bad.
Oh, from Breaking Bad.
Walter.
When I hear Walter, I think
Damn it, Walter.
Jeff Dunham's puppet Walter that looks like Biden.
I just think of Walter Payton.
That's a sports person?
Chicago Bear legend, Walter Payton.
Okay. I was like, I think that's sports. Although I was going to guess NFL.
Yeah, it is NFL. Chicago
okay.
Bears.
Chicago. Oh, Bears. I said Chicago, and I immediately thought the Bulls. I was like, oh, I'm talking about basketball.
The Bulls.
The Bears. The Bears. All right, moving on.
Please, before I die.
While we're on the topic of not necessarily has to be, but typically spooky, scary games are rated M. But I saw it was another, I don't know if it was a super chat, but someone mentioned it on a stream within the last couple of days, and they were asking, hey, what was your first M-rated game? I was like, great topic for party chat. So put it on the list.
A slam dunk.
So just want to go around and hear everyone's, what was your first M-rated game, and anything about it you want to mention. So since you seem to have a slam dunk on this one, Carl, what was your first M-rated game?
I will say, I just want to double check something here. So go to someone else real quick.
All right.
Well,
Zero, you want to go?
Yeah, I checked mine. I'm 99.9% certain it was Mortal Kombat 3 on the Sega Genesis, because Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, if you remember, they had Sega's own. Sega actually was, ironically, the whole thing that happened with the formation of the ESRB. A lot of people forget this or omit it, but Sega had their own rating system in place for a number of years, and you can go back and see it. Yeah, you go back and look at like the Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 2 Genesis boxes. They actually had, I believe it was MA17. But I guess like people just didn't really know what that was.
Yeah,
even though
other games didn't have ratings, so it's like, what does this mean?
Yeah. So they had like MA17. Now, granted, they later did go back and do like an M rating on reissues of the game, but I had it before they even established the rating. So it wasn't until Mortal Kombat 3 on the Genesis that I actually had an M rated game. I mean, I'm still old enough to remember that before they had E for everyone, it was kids to adults.
I have some games that I still have that on it, which I'm almost positive that my copy of Star Fox
KA, kids and adults.
Yeah. So I've got this 360, like I mentioned, I got my Perfect Dark in there because that was one of my favorite N64 games. I got another N64 right behind it, and it's got Star Fox in it. I'm almost positive Star Fox was a K to A rating.
Why do you got two N64s?
I just ended up with two somehow. I don't remember why, but one ended up in my stuff, so I have a second one.
You know what's kind of weird? Like, did they discontinue
what is
the
that
whole
comment on Kick? Hold on a second. What is that?
I'm not highlighting that.
Who did that? Is that a troll? That's a good one.
I'm assuming it is, because
that's
the
funny.
Only people I ever get on Kick are bots.
I think it was a troll, not a bot.
So did they kind of like quietly discontinue the E10? I haven't seen an E10 in a hot minute.
I think so.
I always thought it was silly. It's like either E or T. I mean, there's kind of no in between. I always thought the E10 edition was silly. And same thing with EC. Like EC, the early childhood, it's like
that one I understand. It's like you might want a game that's like for your young kid, where something E still might be too advanced. But so, do you have did you have to coerce your parents or anything to get you this M-rated game, or like, do you have anything about that? No, they just
like that. I mean, so that picture I showed, right? That was the bowling alley. My grandmother is a manager of a bowling alley, so I was kind of mostly raised by I was really back and forth early on between my mom and my grandmother. My grandmother did a lot of it, so she saw the games in the arcade. And I remember when the game came out, she just goes, "This is real. This isn't real, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I know." And she goes, "You can't go around hitting people and drawing blood." I said, "No, I know you can't do that." So she goes, "It's just fantasy." I said, "Yep." And she's like, "Okay, you can have the game."
Well, you can, but you shouldn't.
Well, I mean, also you saw the picture of me. I was a featherweight kid. I wasn't going to be doing anything. But no, I mean, we had like the talk. And it's funny too, because back then what was considered mature, like today, is laughable. I mean, people look at Mortal Kombat, and I mean, again, she saw it, and like I remember the first time she saw a fatality, she's like, "How did so many legs come out of that person?" It was comical, it was silly. It wasn't like and also I watched a lot of, like, my grandfather loved he loved his action movies. So I grew up watching like RoboCop, Terminator, all these movies with my uncle that were, looking back, far worse. Like I don't know how I saw 2 David Cronenberg movies before I was 10.
I've heard that name, but I don't know anything about
he did
movies.
The Fly, and he did Videodrome, and
okay,
yeah.
I know of The Fly.
Yeah.
Okay, so Carl, do you want to go? Or you want me to go?
Yeah, mine was GTA 2 on the PlayStation 1.
Okay, I never played that one. I did play the original, but I know that 1 and 2 were both the top-down perspective, right?
Yeah, that was like the weird part about it. It was like the top-down perspective, and I had no idea. Like, I guess there's a storyline to it, but I would just get into the cars and run over people and just cause chaos, listening to, like, I think Blind Melon was like on the soundtrack. So it's just like me, just like, I had to have been like 5 or 6, and I'm just driving around singing like, all I can say is that my life is pretty plain. I'm just running over people. It's like it was like the start of like a horror movie of a kid possessed by Satan. That's what I just imagine it.
That song is my alarm that wakes me up every morning.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
that's weird.
Oh, because
of all the songs to wake up to, it's like that's the one, Blind Melon.
Well, I like it because like I've got a ton of songs on my phone that I can use as alarms, but I like that one because it kind of starts kind of quiet and kind of raises, not just like like comes in full blast like metal song or something.
You need to have like angry Hank Hill waking up with, "Oh, I'm gonna kick your ass! I'll tell you what."
My alarm. Sorry, I cut you off. Zero, finish it.
Oh, I was just BSing with my Hank Hill.
Oh, your Hank Hill is fantastic.
Oh!
No, I think for me, for the longest time, my alarm was the Reaper sound from Mass Effect, and that would scare the living piss out of me. Because it's the one where it's like it winds up, and then it's like the brrr. I'm like, I'm awake. I'm ready to go.
I wanted something that woke me up more gently, so that's why I went with.
I wanted to be scared of it. So one day, when my heart finally decides to go out, I go out in peace.
I just have like a generic one because I grew up with that Nickelodeon alarm clock that was like the space shuttle countdown, and then playing Reverie, and so like when I got to like adulthood, I was like, I just want something sane to wake me up, man.
So yeah, so you said GTA 2 on original PlayStation?
Yeah, the PS1.
Okay. Yeah, I played the original GTA on PC. So I wasn't sure what consoles it was on.
Yeah, I had to double check that one because the other one I could think of was Conker's Bad Fur Day. But I had to think about that. I was like, I think I played GTA 2 first because the time frame was, I remember my mom used to nanny for rich kids, and I remember I was playing it at their house. So I couldn't remember which one came first, and I had to double check to see if GTA 2 was in fact M for mature at that time.
And you didn't have to coerce anyone to get it for you, right?
No, my dad was an alcoholic, so he bought me whatever. That's
what I figured. For me, the answer was that one right there, Perfect Dark. Like I said, that I could not freaking wait for. I loved GoldenEye, and I was super stoked for Perfect Dark because like it took everything GoldenEye did and did it better. So I could not wait to play it. GoldenEye though was rated teen, and Perfect Dark was rated M. So I had to convince my mom to get it because they wouldn't sell it to me. So I had to have her go get it for me, and I basically had to convince her. I'm like, it's just like GoldenEye, except it's rated M. But everything is exactly the same, and I already have GoldenEye, so I should be able to have Perfect Dark. And she's like, okay, fine. And so I had to essentially talk her into it. But eventually I was able to get it, and yeah, I still love that game.
You know what's crazy is I actually got carded for buying a game yesterday.
That's at our age.
Where the hell did you go to get
compliment.
carded for that?
I went to Target and I bought Rise of the Ronin on clearance for $15. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we need to see your ID." I was like, "You really?"
What?
Yeah.
Been like,
How
what
old do you think
year
I
is
am?
this?
I
What state am I in?
Was it a cute girl that was trying to hit on you?
No, it was a guy that looked like he was in his 20s. I guess he was just
He was probably
following protocol.
worried. Yeah.
Right. I just have to ask. It's part of my job.
It happened
Yeah.
with me at GameStop one time that I used to work at, and I hired someone new, and I walked in and I was just like, he's like, I need to see your ID. I'm like, I work here. You know that, right? It's like, what are you doing? He's like, I might get fired. I'm like, who's going to fire you? I know everyone that works here. I work here. You know, I was just like annoyed. I was like, I'm never coming back here now.
And that's how you quit.
Yeah, basically. It was part-time anyway, so it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, that's one that I remember going to Target and getting Perfect Dark. I was so excited. And I think because Perfect Dark was one of those N64 games that was because there were some games that required the expansion pack. It didn't require it, but if you wanted to play everything that the game had to offer, you had to have the expansion pack. And I don't remember whether I already had it or whether it came with it.
No, it didn't come with it.
I didn't
to
think
my
so.
knowledge, the only thing it was bundled with was Donkey Kong.
Okay,
Actually, wait. I think it might have had a bundle with Star Wars, with Rogue Squadron.
Oh, Rogue Squadron. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had Rogue Squadron. I love that game. But I'm almost positive, though, that I had my expansion pack because it came bundled. I knew it came bundled with the game, and I'm almost positive it was Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah, there's a lot of ambiguity to this day. I watch a lot of Modern Vintage Gamer, and he tried to like go into the reasoning why it was actually required, and like the long standing rumor was that it was because of a memory leak, and basically the only way they could fix it was to throw more RAM at it than it needed. That's why they bundled it.
That's right. I have heard that before. Someone said that because I do know the expansion pack increased the RAM on the N64 from 2 megabytes to 4 megabytes.
Yeah.
But I forgot about that until you just mentioned it because someone's like, yeah, it was because they couldn't figure out why there was a memory leak. So instead of fixing it, they just like, it requires more RAM.
Yeah. And then for Perfect Dark, and I believe one of the Turok games, you needed it for the campaign.
Okay. Yeah, I remember on the Perfect Dark box, it had a little like a chart on the back. It said like, this is what you can do without the expansion pack, and this is what you have access to with the expansion pack. And I can never remember whether it was the campaign or the multiplayer, but one of them you could do and one of them you couldn't. But yeah, I also remember the day going to Toys R Us after I convinced my mom to buy me GoldenEye after playing at a friend's house, and it was rated teen and it was lots of shooting and violence. But
it's James Bond. How bad could it be?
It's James Bond, really. I will do anything. Please buy me this game. And I remember I was so excited that day. I couldn't wait to get out of school and go to Toys R Us to get GoldenEye. So good.
I don't mind the violence, just as long as there's no nude women.
That's pretty much. So, all right. Let's see here. Let's see. Yeah. Zero. How are you looking on time? How much time?
I've got plenty.
Okay. Cool. Then we'll go ahead and add in the bonus question.
Bonus round.
So I had one marked as like we'll do it if we have time. Really depends.
We're not doing the 2001 one.
That I always end with that one. So
okay. 2001 Space Odyssey.
If we weren't going to do the bonus question, we'd go straight to the 2001. But I don't remember. Did I write this one down? Where the idea came from? I did not. So I don't remember where this idea came from, but I thought it would be a great topic for a party chat question. And so that is, what is everyone's favorite couch co-op game? So,
man. That's a good one.
I know mine. I came prepared.
I had a feeling, and I was like, I bet Zero's gonna have a great answer for this question. So
this is a game probably nobody's heard of, but during COVID times, I did a game night with friends. We all got together, and we would go to a local house, and we'd set up and play games. And I was introduced to a game called Laser League, which has unfortunately been, I don't know why, but it's been discontinued. Now, if you still have it on Xbox or Steam, you can still play it. It does have local modes.
That's what I was going to ask. Is what platform?
And oh man, I don't really know how to describe this game for it to make sense with how I'm describing it. But basically, it can be up to 4v4. We played a lot of 2v2, and it's a game where you have spinning lasers, and the goal is to survive. It's got a very Tron aesthetic to it. It's got a very techno, like kind of like lo-fi techno sound. Well, I don't even say lo-fi, but a very like downbeat, like kind of like the Daft Punk soundtrack to Tron Legacy.
Okay,
that's that sort of soundtrack. And you have different builds you can do for your characters, and it plays out like a sports game, and you're in an arena, and you can select different arenas and different patterns for the lasers. And I just had so much fun playing that team. 2v2 is how we normally did it, though. I think there were a couple times we did 3v3, and of course you can do, if you're playing in larger teams, you can kind of synergize your abilities. Like one of them, one of the abilities was like you could have a shield, and you could use the shield to like knock back opponents. There's like a warrior class where instead of relying on the lasers to kill your enemies, you could use a sword, but the sword had a charge time. There was another where you could deactivate the lasers. So you could really strategize with your team and find a skill that everybody was good at, and work together to beat the other team. And it's more of a competitive game than a couch co-op game, but I still loved the co-op aspect, like the team aspect of it, so much that I'm counting it there.
Okay, yeah, I didn't specify anything, so I said couch co-op, so I narrowed it down to like actually me and my partner working towards a goal. But if it's something you can both play together, split screen or whatever, it counts. So that's just what I limited my own. Otherwise, I would have put like Smash Bros on here. But that's more of like versus. But we are playing on the same couch. But I wanted for myself, I kept it to like co-op or we're working together.
Yeah, you could do versus CPU as well. That's still in there. So if you wanted to do like a team of 4 and everybody's going against a computer opponent, but the AI in the game wasn't the greatest, so it was you'd steamroll them once you were experienced enough.
Yeah, I never even heard of this game, but I pulled it up here on True Achievements, and because it's basically there's 24 achievements and 22 of them are discontinued. But yeah, it's got 8,000 TA, that's a crazy high ratio. Out of the 15,408 people that played it, only 78 people completed it. So, and 60 to 80 hour completion. So yeah, I never even heard of it, but that does sound like fun.
They should have never discontinued it. I mean, that's
sort of along those lines. The game I actually just played recently, an Xbox Live Arcade game I went back to and finally finished. That sounds kind of like that. Was Monday Night Combat. Did you ever play Monday Night Combat?
Yeah, long time ago. That was like one of the oh god, that came out in or around the time the Orange Box came out, didn't it?
Probably. Yeah. I don't know what year it was, but that sounds about the right time frame. But sounds kind of similar to this.
Yeah. Except this was top down, whereas Monday Night Combat, if I remember correctly, played similarly to Team Fortress.
Yeah, Monday Night Combat was basically a third-person team shooter, essentially. Yeah. So Laser League was top-down?
Yep, top-down.
Oh, okay. I was imagining it as essentially as a third-person shooter.
It would have been cool to have that mode to be able to play, but you playing top-down, you can see all the lasers moving. If you want to pull it up on YouTube, maybe that's probably a good way to show what it is. because it just doesn't make sense. It makes more sense to see it than to talk about it. But it was a cool game. I think you can go, and it wasn't that big of a popular game, but you can go and buy it on like places like CD Keys and all might still have it.
Oh, and play it if it might still be up on PC.
Yeah, and it's a fun game if you have a PC set up where you're able to hook it up to your TV. Yeah, it's funny. You can actually still buy it from places like Kingwin for under $2.
Well, I will. I'll stick a link to like the trailer or something that for it in the stream description. So afterwards, if anyone wants to go check that out, it'll be there. So, Laser League. So I'll pull that up so I don't forget about it. All right, Carl, you got a favorite couch co-op game? Since I know you have a couch co-op partner.
You mean my wife who goes like, it's too hard, you need to play, so I just basically play by myself while she watches?
Yeah, exactly.
No, not really. My wife kind of just goes in the corner or sits next to me and plays on her Switch while I'm playing a game. And then she'll just do kind of like the woman thing where she'll like kind of put it down and just watch me play while her battery dies. For me, like, I just think to like the old days when you actually hung out with people more like that. Like couch co-op games. It's just like I think of all the Halo games.
That's on my list.
Where me and my buddies would just play Halo religiously to dominate who is the best Halo player in the group. I think, ironically enough, Conker's Bad Fur Days multiplayer mode. We used to do that a lot.
I did not know it had a multiplayer.
Oh, yeah. It was dude, that was such a overlooked hidden gem on N64. Especially the snipers and the chainsaws.
Yes.
Like I said, I didn't even know it had a multiplayer mode, but I'm just imagining, was it anything like Donkey Kong 64's multiplayer mode?
No.
Okay.
And the Xbox Conker had a completely different. That was like the most disappointing aspect for me, other than the load times for the Xbox Conker, was that it had a completely different multiplayer mode than what was on N64.
So, is the one on Xbox, is that like a remaster of the N64 game, or is it a sequel?
It's a
remaster.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't really think about too much. Like Star Wars Battlefront, we used to play a lot of couch co-op with that back in the day. One of them that me and my buddy Gus played religiously when we were kids, because we were both big Pokemon fans, is Diamond and Pearl had a double battle tower that was in the post game, and me and him would just play for as long as we could to try to get to the highest level on the tower. So we would actually
like
sit
the
down.
2v2 battles sort of thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
So we used to do that for hours, especially in the summer, like the dog days of summer. We'd just be inside, getting away from the air conditioning. Getting away from the heat and the air conditioning, sorry. And then, we'd just be like coming up with our little team comps and trying to do things right and be like, okay, you bring these two guys, I'll bring these two guys, and this is what we'll try to do. So it like those were like the days. After that, I want to say 360 era kind of like really kind of killed that because everyone had Xbox Live and we would all just kind of play from home.
You would think that, but I just noticed that every single game I put on my favorite couch co-op game are all 360 games for the most part.
Xbox Live Arcade was such a, and it's funny to say Xbox Live Arcade, but that was such a game changer for some of the local couch co-op games because it was like the first time that like you could play a good version of Smash TV at home.
Yeah. So I'll segue into that. So as I mentioned, like for me, I just put ones that were it's you and a friend or multiple friends working towards a common goal, and it had to be ones that I had actually played couch co-op. So there are some games that would probably be on this list that are couch co-op, but I never actually played them in couch co-op. So when you said like Smash TV, like one of them probably would have been Contra, but I never played it in couch co-op. So for mine, I have quite a few here, but the first thing I thought of was the Halo games because I love Halo, and I played through all of them in co-op, and it's great. I often rag on the Gears franchise because I hate the multiplayer, but I do love the co-op is my thing. I love co-op games. So the Gears co-op I've enjoyed, but I hate Gears' multiplayer with a passion.
Oh wow.
But another full-fledged game, Portal 2. I think that might have been in my top 10 on when I ranked them because I love puzzle games, and Portal was like a game changer because it was like one of the, I don't know if it was the first, but for me it was like the first first person puzzle physics puzzler, and they added a co-op mode in Portal 2. I freaking loved it, and anytime it comes up, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that whole thing was a separate campaign that was pretty long too. I mean,
yeah, it was like 5 or 6 like chapters, and each chapter had like 5 or 6 chambers in it. So that was great. I love the Portal 2 co-op, and I always often mention if anyone wants any help. I have it on. I don't know. I'll have to check my Steam. I think I have it on Steam, but I have it on 360. And if anyone wants any help, because there are some kind of difficult achievements on the 360 version in the co-op that a lot of my friends don't have, I was like, I'd be happy to help with those because I love that game. But I'll run through a couple more of these ones, and then I'll probably finish off with probably like my favorite of them. But speaking of Xbox Live Arcade, Castle Crashers, that one was a lot of fun. I know there's a lot, like that was basically my beat 'em up. I didn't play a ton, but I never really played any of the old beat 'em ups, like the old like Ninja Turtles beat 'em ups, or like the
Axe.
What's that?
Golden Axe, like that to me, that was like Castle Crashers was just like. So I was a huge fan of Newgrounds, and when Alien Hominid came out, I was like, well, this is cool. But then Castle Crashers was the one that resonated because it was like, this is Golden Axe with Tom Phelps humor.
The other one, that I was gonna mention is, was a big popular beat 'em up back in the day, was the Marvel one where you got like Captain America and Cyclops and stuff. But I never really played any of those, so like Castle Crashers was like my beat 'em up, and that was a lot of fun playing in couch co-op.
I have to think New Super Mario Brothers was a really fun one to play couch co-op because that didn't have any online. And I remember like just doing all the trolley stuff, like eating a friend with Yoshi and spitting him out in the lava pit.
What was that on?
Wii.
That was Wii. Okay, I was gonna say I think that was Wii.
Yeah. Like they haven't done any of the games with like true online that I'm aware of. Like because like Mario Wonder, you could just play against Ghost. You couldn't play with actual people online
in real time. Yeah. But Castle Crashers, another Xbox Live Arcade game that I really like was Shank. That was a fun one. And it's funny that because I have both of them, and one of them is backwards compatible and the other one is not. It's like, why aren't they both? But and then another franchise that I rag on a lot because I ended up playing most of it solo and it was boring solo, but it was a lot of fun with friends, was Borderlands.
Did that have like split screens? At least the first one?
Yeah, it had I know they had at least 2-player split screen because that's how I ended up playing it with friends. And then they weren't as committed. They're not an achievement hunter like I was. So I ended up playing through like 90+% of the game, both in Borderlands 1 and 2 by myself. And it wasn't as fun. But then a couple others, because I was looking through my collection. I'm like, I basically went through all the games I played on Xbox since 2006. And a couple others, I'm like, oh yeah, that was fun. Was the Rainbow Six Vegas games. Doing terrorist hunt with some friends. That was a lot of fun. And then another one that often gets forgotten, but it was a great co-op game if you had someone to play it with, but was not great solo because the AI was not very good, was Army of Two. But probably my number one pick, and this was on an episode of Top 5. I don't remember. Oh, I think it was Top 5 360 games. But this was Jason's number one pick on this episode of Top 5. Probably one of my favorites couch co-op games. And I say couch co-op because you're probably not sitting on the couch, but you are all in the same room. And that is the Rock Band games. Yes. Particularly Rock Band 3, because that's the one that has all of the previous ones in it.
I have an honorable mention too. It's not a favorite, but it's just like when you mention Rainbow Six, I happen to think Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. They didn't have spies versus mercs, but they had those side stories where you played as two spies that had all of Sam Fisher's abilities.
Yes, there
That
was
was
a
pretty
co-op
cool.
mode, and I never got to play it. The
Yeah, I
first
didn't
time
get
I
to
played a
finish
Splinter
it.
Cell co-op was, I think, Splinter Cell Convictions co-op mode. But I always wanted to play that co-op mode they had in Chaos Theory, because that is the best Splinter Cell. So, all right. Any other thing pop in your mind while we were listing off some games, Carl?
Nah, I'm good.
All right. So, all right. Well, last topic for tonight. As usually, we always end it off with our favorite game from the next year. Last episode, we talked about 2000. So today, we're talking about our favorite games for the year 2001. So, and it was funny. Oh, sorry. Last thing before we move out off the topic is while I was doing some homework for the couch co-op question, I came across, maybe everyone knows about this website. I didn't know about it until literally a few hours ago. Fantastic website called Co-Optimus. And you can look up a game and it'll tell you whether it's got, local split screen, how many players, if it's got online play, how many players, whether it can support System Link. I was like, this website is fantastic. So I don't know if I'm just late to the party, but I stumbled across Co-Optimus. So awesome website. So I'm going to drop the link to it here in just a second. Make sure I've got it right. So if you're interested, I'll put it in the stream description as well. There's a link to the Co-Optimus website where you can look up a game and see if it's got multiplayer and split screen and all that. So, but yeah. So with that, now we'll move on to 2001. And it was funny, literally like 30 minutes before we started the stream, I was just on X and I saw someone I followed was talking about their favorite games from 2001. I'm like, hey, we're going to be talking about that on Party Chat tonight. So, Zero, what are some of your favorite games from 2001?
There were so many games that year. I mean, it had the launch of the Xbox, launch of the GameCube. At that point, the PlayStation 2 was firing on all cylinders. I'm going to have to say, the best game for me for 2001 was definitely a game that I didn't expect to like. It was Halo. I mean, I went in and I got my GameCube at launch and I got Rogue Leader.
I got Rogue Leader on launch day for GameCube as well.
I got Super Monkey Ball. Those were my 3 games. And I remember that November around, because it was funny because the original Xbox was like so unproven that people didn't really know what to make of it, and it was kind of like out in flux. And in fact, I didn't get a PS2 until the year later. And I remember I got I over Thanksgiving, because I was still in high school. Over the Thanksgiving holiday, I went over to a buddy's house and I played original Xbox, and I was like, "Holy crap!" I misjudged this thing, and I remember sitting there playing Halo and just being blown away.
I had a very similar thing. I went over to a friend's house and he had an Xbox and had Halo, and I didn't know anything about it. I had heard the name and that was it. And I played it. I'm like, this is awesome. Yeah. So I didn't end up getting my own Xbox till many years later, but I played a ton of Halo because all my friends had it.
So I didn't get the Xbox until a little bit after Christmas when they came out with that Jet Set Radio and Sega GT 2002 bundle. That's when I got mine. But still, I will say Halo was my favorite game of 2001, with the runners-up probably being Silent Hill 2.
Okay.
Which, man, just still one of the best survival horror games ever made. And the remake, don't sleep on the remake. I know a lot of people crapped on the remake.
It's a bummer Ryan's not here, because every time Silent Hill 2 comes up, he's like, I love Silent Hill 2, but I don't know about this remake. And everyone,
I think he played it.
Everyone has been on the panel whenever it comes up has played it, and they're like, you really should. So you think he's played it now?
I think he said he did.
Okay.
The sad part is everybody that has talked bad about the remake has had 2 things in common. One, I'll say well, okay, so you're calling it Soylent Hill. What's your favorite? So I've never played the series. Or they're somebody that just doesn't play video games at all, and they're just kind of parroting talking points. And they're like, well, they made Maria less hot. They made the girl who's a rape victim less hot. And the thing about the redesigns, like Maria's redesign, I can kind of understand some of the people that are like, Okay, but they do reference her original outfit, and if you play through the game, it's as much of a remake as it is a sequel. That's all
A
I'll say.
sequel reboot.
It's strange, but it works. I don't want to spoil anything about how it works, but it's very much worth your time. And then Angela looks like her original concept art, and I can prove that. In the 11th hour for Silent Hill 2, they made her look like they made her look just like Sandra Bullock did in the movie The Net. And there was a time in the early 2000s where Japanese developers just had this weird infatuation with American movies that they thought were going to be big and ended up fizzling out. Evidence that in the Resident Evil 1 remake, where they gave Chris and Jill costumes from the movie The Mexican. Who remembers that? But it lives on forever because it's costumes in Resident Evil 1. But Halo, Silent Hill 2, definitely Smash Brothers, definitely Pikmin. Pikmin was probably one of the next to Halo, one of the biggest surprises. I didn't know what to ask for Christmas. So I was like, yeah, I'll take Pikmin. And I had so much fun playing that and Melee, and I did everything there was to do in Rogue Leader. But I still think Halo.
Speaking of Rogue Leader, did you get all golds?
I did.
Wow, because I got all gold in Rogue Squadron. I could never do it in Rogue Leader. It was so much more difficult.
Yeah, because you have to turn off your targeting computer, and that was tough.
Yeah, the worst, probably. Well, I don't know about the hardest.
The bombing level.
The one that I spent the most time on, I could still never get the gold, was the Death Star escape when you're on the turret trying to take out the TIE fighters. Yeah, because there's no crosshairs, and you have to have good accuracy.
You know what I did is I put a piece of painter's tape.
I knew you were going to say that. It's funny you mentioned that because I was just talking about that on Metroidvania Monday last night.
Yeah, that was my little life hack, because I took a little piece of painter's tape and I put that dead center in my screen, and that was how I got past just not using the targeting computer.
Oh, that's a great idea. And it's funny because I recently just replayed Rogue Leader for the first time in like 15 plus years because of the GameCube launch on Retro Achievements this last summer. So
yeah, I built my Raspberry Pi 5 and I've been revisiting it.
So I'll go ahead since I'll mention some of the ones that actually Carl, you go ahead just to make sure I don't steal any of your answers either.
I don't think you can really steal answers, but it's fine.
Okay.
For me, like I'm looking at some of the list of 2001, almost at 2021. I was like, "Whoa, hello." But there was a lot of great games here that I didn't play at the time, but I've went back on. Obviously, Onimusha came out this year as well, so I think that was like one of the more big franchises that came out that year. Ironically, you had another Devil May Cry. You had Devil May Cry come out, another Resident Evil game that failed and became its own thing. So that's kind of funny that you have two of those iconic Capcom franchises that came out the same year that spawned from Resident Evil. Another thing too is I didn't realize Conker's Bad Fur Day came out in 2001 as well.
Oh fuck, it did.
So that's kind of funny. Grand Theft Auto 3 was one of those really fun games that you rented as a kid and just like went on a killing spree and you didn't understand what was really going on. You just kind of did that. And then obviously we talked about Halo and we talked about Smash, and all those games were great. But I also I didn't realize this, but one of those really fun licensed games as a kid came out too. That was Simpsons Road Rage. Which is just a Crazy Taxi ripoff too, which I enjoyed playing for hours upon hours. It's just because I really liked The Simpsons back in the day.
I've never played it, but I see that listed on like list videos all the time, and like I know the game's got a lot of love, like from people. Yeah. You know, it's like one of those
Road Rage and
classics.
Yeah, Hit and Run was great.
Hit and Run is what I was talking about. Were you talking about Hit and Run or Road Rage?
Road Rage.
Oh, I was thinking of Hit and Run. I didn't realize that those were two different games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they're two different games. One's a Crazy Taxi clone, one's a GTA clone.
Which one is which?
Road Rage is the Crazy Taxi clone.
Oh, I thought Simpson Hit and Run was the Crazy Taxi ripoff.
Yeah. No, that's the GTA
clone. Okay, I had those flipped in my mind all these years.
Fake fan. Sorry.
I was never into Simpsons, so I don't call myself a fan.
Hit and Run also did something that was like kind of controversial in this time, is that you could run over the kids.
Yeah, but you couldn't kill him.
You
But it was
couldn't
just
kill
funny.
him, but you could hit Ralph Wiggum and he'd fly across the map.
Yeah. Oh, also shout out to probably the one of the more fun launch titles for the GameCube that I actually played last year on stream and completed. Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah. That game gets so much unnecessary hate, and it's sad.
I really did enjoy it. I thought it actually holds up pretty well too. The controls are fine. Now that I'm adult and I know how to play video games, like it doesn't feel as hard too, which I think is always funny. It's like the games that you thought were like impossible as a kid. Now that you're an adult, it's just like, this wasn't that bad.
I didn't know there was hate for it. Everyone that I hear talk about it, which isn't a whole lot, but usually
there was hate for it at launch more so than anything else.
Was it hate because of the game or because it wasn't a Mario game?
Yes,
both.
Okay.
Yeah, because it wasn't a Mario game and it didn't play like people were expecting because there's no platforming. I mean, it's basically like a very kid-friendly survival horror-ish sort of experience, even though it's not really a survival horror-ish experience. It's got like the layout of like a Resident Evil mansion, but you're not struggling for health or anything. It's just you're going. It was the best Ghostbusters game before the Ghostbusters game.
Ghostbusters 3, essentially.
Yeah.
Which I did buy recently, Carl. You'll be glad to know.
Good.
That's
finally
in my backlog of once I get, as I mentioned, I'm working on getting my recovery up to a certain point. So Ghostbusters Remastered is one of those games I'll be playing.
See, you should buy it on 360 or PS3 because you get all those 90s Pepsi ads in it. Like you get Pepsi and like vintage Pepsi and Dorito ads. They took that out in the remaster.
Oh, okay. Oh, bummer. So, okay. Well, as for myself, as mentioned, Rogue Leader, I freaking love that game. It is when we did top 5 Star Wars games, I think that was like my number 3. And Smash Melee, love that game. Halo would probably have to be my number 1 answer as well out of all the ones I have listed here. But a couple others that I absolutely love from 2001 that haven't gotten mentioned was also a GameCube launch title, because these are the 2 games I got on launch day on my GameCube, was Rogue Leader and Tony Hawk 3. That's my favorite Tony Hawk game as well. Well, at least until the 1+2 remaster came out, because that is phenomenal. But I freaking love Tony Hawk 3.
I think 3 is the best soundtrack of them all. I
would agree. We mentioned it on, I want to say top 5 soundtracks, but a lot of music that I got into was because of Tony Hawk games and Rock Band / Guitar Hero games.
Remember, that was what introduced me to Del the Funky Homo Sapien. I was like, hey, it's the guy from the Gorillas.
So, but a couple others that I want to give a shout out to was, there was a twofer that came out, but I only got to play one of them. I will play the other one at some point, but was Zelda Oracle of Ages. It was Oracle of Seasons. I never got a chance to play, but I had Oracle of Ages, and I really liked that one. And then the last one I want to shout out is the original Unreal Tournament came out in 2001. So, and that was a lot of fun. I never had the guts to go play it online. I don't think I even had internet at the time. So I just played against bots, but I had so much fun playing that game against bots. Same thing with the Unreal Tournament 2003 and 2004. I never went online. I was like, I don't have the guts to play it online. I'm just having so much fun playing it against bots. So, but yeah, Unreal Tournament, often forgotten franchise. And it's a shame that it literally doesn't exist anywhere anymore. I went on a rant about it on an open mic one time because I was like, it was when because I still got like all my old PC discs in this tower right here. And so I've got my Unreal Tournament discs and stuff in there. I was like, I don't want to fish the discs out. I'll just go put on my wish list on Steam and pick it up when it's like 50 cents. I was like, oh, it doesn't exist on Steam. I was like, oh, obviously it's an Epic game. I'll go on the Epic store. Doesn't exist there either. So I was like, GOG? Nope. It doesn't exist on the internet like anywhere. The only way to play it is if you have the original discs. So, and that basically goes for the entire Unreal franchise. It's basically been wiped off the face of the internet. It sucks. So,
yeah, even that
Yeah.
one that came out on Play, it was like a PlayStation 3 exclusive that Midway published that had like a Raiden in there as a guest fighter.
That was Unreal Championship, which was on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
episode or on that issue of Xbox Magazine that
Yeah.
pulled up. James raves about that game. He loves that one. I never played the Unreal Championships. I always wanted to. I never got a chance to, but yeah, it was basically like a Unreal cross Mortal Kombat game, essentially.
Mhm.
So yeah. All right. Well, that will wrap it up for tonight's episode 34 of Party Chat. Thank you for joining me. Extra Zero, is great having you on finally after all these years. So what do you got going on that you want to plug? I do have the link to his channel in the stream description already, but I will go ahead and drop that again in case you aren't subbed to this guy. Go check him out. What do you got going on?
Yeah, so I'll probably be going live on my channel tomorrow. This is what I post my community tab. So I'll be going over all that Transformers news and happenings. Then, of course, on Sunday, I'll be hanging out with the Aussies doing the Gronky on Dogs podcast. Actually, Carl, are we go? We're doing something on Saturday, right? I'll make sure I'm not. Yeah, so be streaming on his channel on Saturday night, and then the following Saturday I'll be doing a ranking, a tier listing for Transformers Cybertron over on my channel. So it's gonna be a fun week, and hopefully I'll be able to get out some. I've been really just trying to crank out some evergreen content, but I've been busy. I've been editing for Mazza. I've been doing some content for his channel as well. So yeah, there's a link to my link tree over on my Twitter profile. You can check out his content there as well as Gronking on Dogs. But yeah, trying to get my channel up to 500 subs by the end of the year so I can hopefully get monetized and pay for my streaming software. That's my goal. I don't care about fame. I just want the stuff to pay for itself.
Yeah, Carl always has something to say about, if you can make this, pay for, what is it, like a bill?
Yes. If you can turn streaming into paying for one bill, you made it.
Exactly.
So, good stuff. So, well, had a great time as always, and great having you on. So,
thank you.
Carl, what else do you got going on that you want to shout out?
So tomorrow I will be back on with Static and whoever else wants to join to talk about, I guess, a new segment I've started to just do like weekly kind of gaming news and watch something and talk about it and stuff. So tomorrow we're going to be doing some light gaming news because there really hasn't been too much that's been too crazy. But there was a show back in the day on G4 Tech TV, and I found a YouTube channel that has them all archived. And one of them, and it's called Icons. And it basically, circa 2001 to 2003, talks about like gaming icons and like iconic things in gaming. And one of them, who I thought was kind of funny, has my favorite con man as an icon, Mr. Peter Molyneux. So I decided tomorrow that I'll be watching that episode with Static and whoever else wants to join to kind of see just like what the gaming industry thought of Peter Molyneux back when he was like on top of the world making like Black and White and Fable and all that stuff. So I feel like that's like these are great time capsules. I kind of want to maybe do like a few of them here and there just to kind of like, talk about it, see how the gaming industry has changed their opinions in over 22 years.
Sweet.
So that's what I'm doing tomorrow. It's Friday. I'll have on one of the Gronk boys himself, Mr. Cream NATO.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to have a fun conversation, me and him. That'll be Friday at 7 p.m. Central. And then Saturday, aforementioned Zero mentioned it, but we'll have Zero, Seth, and obviously Insidious Bliss on. And we're going to be talking about, can we fix the gaming industry? It's going to be a fun little topic that I think... obviously, we're a bunch of ignoramuses outside of the industry, and we can only say so much. But I think it would be fun just to have like a more cathartic conversation that doesn't start and end with DEI and woke. So basically, just talk about that more so than anything else. And then I think that's really about it for this week. I'm on vacation starting next Saturday, so There won't really be too many shows next week, besides for a Wednesday show with Fractured and Static. And then Friday, I think I'm going to be streaming Monster Hunter Wilds all day because that's the only time I'm really going to be able to play it. Because I will be gone for about a week and 2 weeks. And there will be no shows for 2 weeks.
Oh, so that means you won't be here for party chat on the 4th.
Nope.
All right. Good to know ahead of time. So, all right. Yeah, I won't be able to catch you tomorrow night because I'll be live as well, but I'll definitely be watching that after the fact. But I should be able to catch you live on Friday and Saturday, most likely.
Right on.
But yeah, as for myself, as mentioned, I think a couple times tonight, tomorrow night, we will be continuing Reverse Dude Souls. Now that I've beaten it, I am watching Dude show me how it's done. I've got a live counter of his deaths at the bottom and basically like splits in like a racing game with my deaths at each major point in the game at each boss to see what the difference is between my deaths and his deaths. Obviously, he's played it a few times, so he's kind of an expert. But we're watching Dude show me how it's done. And then on Thursday night, we'll be, hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll finally have the first open mic of the year. It was supposed to be last week, but my guest had to bail on me last minute. So unfortunately, it did not happen. Hopefully, my guest won't bail on me this week. We've had to reschedule a couple times, and we've both had to reschedule. So no shade or anything. But I've got something cool to debut because we've been cooking up something, and I can't wait to show it off. But if for some reason he's not able to make it, I'm going live and I'm going to do something. Don't know what. But it's been way too long since I've done an open mic, so I'm very much looking forward to getting back in the swing of open mic because it's been over 3 months since I've done an open mic. So, and then next Monday, we'll be putting Metroidvania Monday on pause for a week because I have not done Mass Effect Monday yet. So next Monday is Mass Effect Monday. If anyone wants to play Mass Effect 3 with me, let me know and we'll make it happen. And then next Tuesday will be the next episode of Top 5, and we are ranking our top 5 favorite shooters. So we've still got probably room for like one more person if anyone wants to join. So let me know if you are interested. It'll be obviously Jason and I and you, and Lowest Expectations said, hey, count me in. So
all right, cool.
So yeah, if anyone wants to join for top 5 shooters, let me know. So, well, that will be it for tonight. Thank you again for joining me, Extra Zero. It was a blast having you on. And
yeah, thank you.
As always, Carl.
Yep.
Great co-host. And everyone who joined in chat, thank you for hanging out with us for all this time as we babble on about useless video game stuff, but it's fun to chat about. So you all have a good night. We will see you all next time. And as always, in the meantime, game on.
Peace out.